Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perspective Philosophy, where we try to better our perceptions of the world through philosophical discussion. In today's episode, I am going to be debating socio-political relativism. So, if anyone doesn't know what that is ethical relativism, and so the belief that an individual's culture or society determines what is right or wrong, or that essentially there are no ethical, real, or ethically objective truths. That all comes and boils down to cultural beliefs and structures of opinion relating to one's political or socio-political position in the world. So, in other words, if one culture thinks it's good and another culture thinks it's bad, there is no way to mediate between good and bad in that scenario. They are both right and wrong by their own standard, and that is just essentially all that there is. So, before we get into this debate, I'm going to be debating a guy who I've never debated before, and he just reached out to me on YouTube, I believe it was. And so he's been talking to us in Discord a little bit. I'm not sure about the guy's full position. I just know that he doesn't believe that morality is real, objective, in the same way I do. And so wanted to debate me about it. And also, I believe that I think English is his third language. So we're going to be nice if he struggles with expressing himself in English. It's far better than I can express in any other language. So let's get into it. Yori Twisted, nice to see you here. I hope everyone is having a nice day as well. It's very, very sunny here. So yeah, right. Okay, so I'm gonna call him now. Hello. Just to let you know, we are live, just in case you weren't aware.
Hello?
Hello, how you doing, mate? I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. How you doing? Okay, I don't think he can hear me. Yes, but you can't hear me.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, no. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, the beard's gone. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me now?
I could hear you before. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello? Let's see if he's able to get this. Would it even be a PP debate without a tech issue? No, it's got to be my side or their side. It doesn't go one way or the other. That's just the way it works.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you doing?
I can hear you fine. Sorry.
Oh,
I told you I have mic issues.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, it's cool. No, it's cool, man. Don't worry about it.
It's a cheap 10 euro bought fucking plastic piece of shit.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you feeling and about this debate? You were saying that it's been a while since you've had a debate and stuff. Have you ever talked about this issue?
I think it's been since 2013 where I had my last debate.
It's probably healthy for you, if I'm honest. So
I can imagine. Honestly, I'm not a guy that debates, so the way I see it, or at least the place I come from, debate is just a prelude to a fist fight. you know.
I think it's probably the same in Newcastle. To be fair, I don't think there is a healthy debate outside of a university or something. I don't think actually in England.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, Northerners. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, but anyway, so you were saying like you think morality is relative, and you want
Yeah.
to. Why is that? Why do you think morality is relative?
Well, we'll simply see that depending from from culture to culture, we have different definitions of morality, and I think here's the thing. I think the issue lies in the idea that um, I may not understand, like in the English language, what specifically you mean by objective morality. So I have to understand. I'm an ex-Muslim,
Okay. Okay.
so I know I'm an atheist, but like my understanding of objective morality comes where there's the Holy Quran, and there was a set like magical objective morality that it's
Yeah.
enshrined in existence itself and revealed through the holy book.
Hmm.
So maybe my definition of objective morality is different from yours, but I do not understand how there's like I think even in your video talked I think you mentioned Hegel, or maybe
Yes.
I'm confusing him with Kant. You mentioned that Hegel said that there's somehow a universal law. I think I'm saying that
Universal
correctly.
moral law. Like I would say that there is. I
Yeah,
just don't think that we know it. That'll be like. So like I would say like so for example with the Quran, or any like Christian Judaism, any religious sort of like especially the Abrahamic religions, the idea of morality, it being objective, really relates to God. um,
yeah,
God tells us what is good because God is good, and so goodness emanates from the being of God.
yeah, yeah,
And so that's revealed to us through Scripture, as you say, and well, revelation, both special and general,
yeah,
and then arguably you have reason, right? So even on a religious, like, this is the thing. So the thing is with Muslims and like Islam, and the thing is with like Judaism and obviously sects of Christianity still, they're fundamentalists. So they believe that it's revealed directly through the words of God written in Scripture. Now that's a very, very specific kind of objective morality, which does directly contradict what I would argue for an objective morality. Like that is incompatible with what I would argue objective morality is.
yeah.
I would actually
But
say that morality is impossible, and I'll get onto that in a minute if you want. But in terms
sure,
of what
sure.
I would say an objective morality would be, in terms of objective ethics, I would say that, well, what ethics is pertaining to behavior, understanding like how we engage and how we can choose within the world. And then when we talk about what is right or wrong, we're talking about making right or wrong choices based on essentially what we are as a being, but also an understanding of what is valuable inherently. And I would say that relates to understanding subjectivity itself, something that is, and subjectivity is something is like every conscious, experiencing, sensitive being. So when we talk about what is actually good for every conscious experiencing being, that's when we'd start talking about the kind of objective ethics and objective morality that I would be prescribing to, not a religious sect of any kind.
Sure, sure. Yeah, my point would be that that's my exactly my contention, because what is valuable to one culture is not valuable to one culture. What is beneficial to one culture is clearly not beneficial to the other. So I would like to take the example from the Balkans. I don't know how much you know about Balkan history, but it's
I
very
know a little
visible.
bit. I remember a little bit about the Balkans War, but
Yeah,
like the Balkans Wars, but not very much. I'd prefer to hear it from someone who's clearly going to know a lot better than me.
yeah, yeah. Well, of course I'm biased, of course, because I'm one side, and yeah, sure. And just as a warning, if you've not seen a Balkan comment section, you're in for a shitstorm you're not prepared for.
Why is
Because
that?
gen-
Sorry, go on.
oh, genocide denial and taking pride in mass killings is like seen as normal in the Balkans. So like we literally, there are people that brag, no, our soldiers did this more to your civilians. No, they did more to civilians. Like it's like, Nazis will try to lie, and Western Nazis will try to pretend like, no, they're not actually genocide deniers. No, no, we in the Balkans, we're just outright open about it. We take pride in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, obviously, I would say that, like, if I'm honest, I'd say that you can have, like, a perverse cultural mindset, like Nazism or like anything like that. Like, when it comes down, if people in the Balkans are openly okay with genocide, I would say that It's just mass ignorance.
Some more.
Just mass ignorance. It's like the same thing with people rejecting the
But
Copernican revolution. When that came around, people believing that the Earth is flat, or people believing that the Earth is the center of our solar system. These
sure,
things, like throughout history, they were culturally relative, arguably. Being
well,
and relative to a sect of individuals, but overall, we can look towards something which can validate or verify or falsify that belief.
well, the thing is that you're talking about like objectively proven scientific evidence that can be proven. It can be proven that the sun doesn't revolve around the Earth, but how can you prove? Like, that's the thing. Like, what the sort of like for what is good for the geese is not good for. I believe the saying is good for the geese, good for the gander. I'm butchering the English
Yeah,
language.
what's good for geese is good for gander. Yeah, that's the
For example, like I take it. For example, in it's a widely accepted, prominent belief is specifically in like more right wing, but even sadly, even in moderate like Serbian circles, they basically like we talked about it that you don't think that material gain is not like you shouldn't strive for material gain. I think you said something along the lines for that.
Well, I mean, don't get me
It's not
wrong. I think
depend
that
on
material is important. Like, so for example, for the
yeah,
for
but
the
it's not the
subsist,
most important,
but
right?
it's not valuable in and of itself. Like, I'm not like some sort of like bad Marxist who thinks that everything comes down to material contentions between individuals, or a fascist or something like that. I think that's a very poorly. I don't even think Marx was necessarily that bad, like in terms of believing that. I think that people like since that point have like boiled it down away from ideology far more than Marx even did. But yeah, like I don't think that like striving for like for material is going to make you happy. I can go into the metaphysics of desire
Okay.
if you want and explain that, like why I think that won't make you happy, or if you like, or
I'd just like to explain this one. I would be really much interesting to hear from you because this is not much of a debate. It's more than like you're clearly a way more intelligent human being. So I'm like the
that's
way I
certainly
learn
debatable.
things. If I sorry, what?
I said that's certainly debatable in itself. Like, but yeah, like just like anything philosophically that I can help,
Sure.
give an explanation for.
The way I learn things is that if I bounce something off of, if I'm combative,
Why
like
not?
I can't, I hate, like I cannot, like I don't, even as a child, I hated somebody condescending to me, like, look, little kid, just sit down. No, I have to argue, and if somebody beats my arguments, well, clearly, like he has to convince me, right? Like it's a, I don't know if it's a toxic masculine, I don't know, but yeah, so basically. This there's like a so okay, oh my god, now I need to fucking explain like it's the destiny debate with the Richard Wolff where we talked about history. so so there was the Battle of Kosovo where the Ottoman Empire defeated the Serbian kingdom. So now Serbs basically believe that the site of the Kosovo battle is basically their holy land. The same as Israelis or with the Crusaders states with Jerusalem. They believe it's a holy site. So it's a genuinely modern held belief in Serbia that they need to cleanse my people off of Kosovo. I'm Albanian. They believe that us Albanians are somehow evil invaders and we need to be cleansed of this part of the earth. And they feel like I've actually talked to ex-Serbian soldiers and they feel joy in what they've done in war crimes. They feel that they've done a duty to God and a duty to their country.
Yeah,
It's not just material conditions to them. They legitimately feel joy and their
indoctrination.
entire personality. Yeah, it's not like I've seen, of course, I've seen Serbian soldiers who have regret, but I've seen also like most of them just seem to legitimately feel pride
I
in what
mean,
they've done.
there's also the fact that I think it's a coping mechanism in and of itself to tell yourself like,
I
oh
don't
yeah, yeah.
think so.
It depends
No,
on
no, no.
I don't know. It depends on the person. I think like obviously there are
It
people who
depends,
just
sure.
there are people who just are just like heavily indoctrinated even. Like I think
Yeah,
those
yeah, exactly.
Nazis who did the exact same thing. Like they thought that they've done a service to the world. They think they've really brought around
Exactly.
the good.
Yeah.
And the thing is that this is not even incompatible with objective ethics as is even
How so? How
so
come?
like look at it like this. So back in ancient Greece, right? Socrates actually brought this up. Basically, he thought that everyone thinks they are doing the good thing. They think that nobody.
Yeah, everybody's the main protagonist of their own story.
Yeah, but he also thinks that everyone has a different conception of good. That doesn't mean that they necessarily understand what goodness is. It just means that they have a different conception of what it is. It just like, so for example, like this is what later in ethics got brought up by as the open-ended argument by a guy called G.E. Moore, where he said, well, what is goodness? If everyone tells us what, like, you know, a different story, like, well, it's good to kill this person, it's not good to kill this person, it's good to enslave people, it's not good to enslave people, and he's like, how could goodness be any particular thing ontologically, if every time somebody essentially points to it and comes out with a different explanation?
Exactly. Yeah, that's my problem.
Yeah, and I see that as an epistemological problem. So I think that if we look at, like, so for example, in the thumbnail of this video, I quite intentionally put world flags, but I also put the picture of the gun with the tied knot from the United Nations, right? Now I think there is one thing that unites us all, it's in our will. It's our will to try and bring around what we believe to be good, to try and express our subjectivity and do what we think is right. And in such a motivation, we can be indoctrinated into any organization that, you know, professes that they know what is right and more than any other. But this is like, I don't know if you like this, if you're familiar with our philosophy. I actually genuinely hate our politics, but there is one great essay from a person called Ayn Rand, right? Genuinely hate our politics. Yeah, hate our politics, terrible. But one great essay by Ayn Rand called "The Virtue of Selfishness," and just in that essay, she basically says that every morality is subjective if it can't point towards like a foundation for what is good. And what she points towards the foundation being is egoistic, like what is actually going to bring around a positive circumstance for the individual that they will feel, that they will experience. They would be unable to deny the value of pleasure or deny the pain or deny the negative value of pain within their own life. And so she points towards that being the objective foundation, essentially. Actually, she points towards something even more basic. She says life itself, which I think is full of shit, actually. But I personally would say that it's within the contents of our lives, we have experiences that are positive and negative, which we cannot deny. I can't deny that if I touch something, burn my hand, I'm going to feel a negative experience.
Yes.
And these are the kind of objective values which are analyzable within an individual's experience. Now, to even analyze this objective value, I need a conception of myself. I need to understand who I am, where I am, why I'm essentially, whether this pain was worth the pleasure it'll bring in the future, or whether it has greater overall benefit to me and my family, or whatever it is. And in gaining this self-understanding, I have to relate myself, like this experience of a first-person phenomena, with others. Now, what I would actually go so far as to say, and I think that this is really the truth that exists within cultural relativism, is that an individual's psyche is culturally embedded. An individual understands themselves not prior to being in a culture, but they understand themselves through the culture. Like those Serbians that you were talking to, they understand themselves through the culture. Like, it would be nonsense to them to even think of themselves as, like, the opposite sides. Like, they wouldn't be able to see themselves as like Albanians or something. It wouldn't compute. They wouldn't even understand what it would feel like. Same thing is, like, obviously, like every culture around the world, everyone understands themselves in their own socio-political mindset. But the reality of the situation is that it all boils down to the same ontology, which is the positive and negative experience within every individual. Now, what we know is that the only way we can gain knowledge of this can't be from a particular, because, like, as Plato, Aristotle, and many other metaphysicians throughout history have showed, you can't have knowledge of something that is truly singular, that is fleeting and transitory. You can only have knowledge of something which is universal. You can only gain an understanding of something where you can go, it is like this, and this is why. You can give sufficient reason, and you can give a logical explanation.
But I don't think people can.
No, I think they can. But
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like I have like severe memory loss, as you can imagine from like years of street. place, which I've lost the majority of. And like I wanted to like touch some of your points. So, like sorry for
Yeah,
interrupting
no, go
because
for it.
I'm
Go for it.
genuinely afraid I'm gonna forget what you said.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry. Oh my god. So okay, I'm legit like. It can possibly be that I'm so stupid that it may seem in bad faith, so I'm maybe mischaracterizing your points. So you said that I think what you meant to say is that we all have a conception of bad and good based from our own egoistic experiences. Something feels bad, something feels good, right?
Somewhat. I mean, I don't necessarily. When I would say that the truth of egoism is that the ego is socio-politically constructed. That it's that we begin as a universal within culture and apply it to our individual instanced experiences. So I understand myself as a they, Heidegger would say, before I understand myself as an I.
So morality seems to be based on your culture, right?
Yeah, like our investigation into it. Yeah.
Well, but, but again, I may have misunderstood it. But the thing is that, well, yeah, sure, we all have a bad and a good in our world, but that's the thing. It's different from culture to culture. What is bad, what is good. I don't think there's a universal sort of human experience of what is bad and is good. There are some issues, I guess. Like none of us would like to deep fry our hand, you know.
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly. But I mean, like it's like what I would say
there's
is
also so many differences. The key, essential, irreparable differences.
well, this is the thing. I don't think that they're irreparable at all. I think that the differences.
Absolutely.
I think that the differences that are irreparable are usually logically flawed in the first place and don't surmount to have an objective basis. So when we talked about deep frying my hand, the reason I brought that up is really to juxtaposition it against something like a I don't know, like a what's the word I'm looking for? A transcendent morality, something given by God. Because then, deep frying your hand is not necessarily wrong if God tells you to do it. It's good. You should deep fry your hand. Now the thing is what I would say to that, and I think what Ayn Rand is really pointing to, is that it's unfounded. Like if I can't point towards some sort of experiential value of positive or negative, then there is no reason for me to believe it's positive or negative, and I can dismiss it. Whilst if I, talk about something like pain or pleasure, I can point towards the positive or negative of that. I can talk about the experience of an individual's life having that value response. Now, this is what I would take value to be, and I think this is what really anyone who studies philosophy in terms of objective ethics for the most part these days takes value to be, as in it's experiential. Like they don't take value to be something that is sublime, not something that is transcendent and exists in the mind of God or something like that. And if they do, then they usually try and give a secular argument as to why it's that case. So like Alistair McIntyre, he still points towards an individual's life, and he points towards the nature that is given by God and so on like that. And that's where I would ground all of this. I would ground it in our experience of reality. I would say that when morality
they are so wildly different though, or with the way we experience reality seems to be so wildly different.
It can be, yes, but I think that there are similarities which we can build universals out of. So for example, like my understanding of my experience only exists because it's common. I would say that like my self-understanding could not exist on a personal basis. I don't think it's possible that people come from their own minds with their own beliefs individually, and we're all these we're all these subjects. No. I think like socio-political relativism makes the most sense there, because the reality is that we all come from our own cultures and our own groups and our own group understandings, where we've communicated and created concepts which have allowed us to understand ourselves and construct like self-consciousness. Now that I get, like I understand why someone would say that, but the only thing that separates really objective morality and socio-political relativism is whether a culture can be right or wrong. Like, can I say that like a given culture is wrong? Like, so for example, this is what I would say. I would say that I can, because I think everyone is trying in the culture is talking about and expressing notions of goodness ontologically. Now, I'd say that if something is not ontologically grounded, like epistemologically grounded into like some sort of metaphysical reality. So if I can't go like, if I can't correspond a proposition to reality, then it is unfounded, it's unfalsifiable, and it's incapable of being true. So in which case, I can dismiss it as false. And so this is why, and I would
I'm
even
sorry. Could you explain to me what ontological means? I know that seems
being,
like a
in relation to being,
probably
something which.
common in your circles, but I legitimately don't understand the word.
Oh,
I've
no,
heard
no,
it,
it's
but I
fine.
don't get
Yeah,
it.
it just means being. So ontological is like the study of being, the study of what is. So like, for example, I'm trying to think of a good like example of like, have you ever heard of like Thales' ship? Like
Yeah, Theseus ships, right?
Theseus. That's
Theseus.
it. Theseus. Is it Theseus? Yeah, it's Theseus' ship. Yeah. Um, that ship's traveling around, like, when as it's traveling around, they change the boards and so on,
Yeah,
like that.
Theseus, yeah.
Yeah, like we would be talking about whether it's the same ship. That would be the study of whether it's the same entity, the same being, what constitutes being, and what can we know about it, right? That's like ontology, and that it's a subsect of metaphysics, essentially. So so if I talk about something like obtaining reality, like having some sort of ontological foundation, it would be like me saying like I don't know, like I'm wearing a black t-shirt. Now, if I wasn't wearing a t-shirt, that sentence wouldn't actually obtain reality, and so ontologically would be unfounded. It would be like, or let's say t-shirts didn't exist and it was like a nonsense statement, or let's say I said something like I'm wearing or something like even more like absurd. So like I'm holding a square triangle or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, it wouldn't, it doesn't meet reality. It's incoherent. It's one, logically incoherent, so that means that it's incapable of actually existing in the sense that it's what's the word? It's when you say incoherent, essentially it's contradictory, like self-contradictory. And then there's the ontological aspect of it, where because it's self-contradictory, it couldn't actually exist as a real object from which to be analyzed. Now, what I would say is that all of us are trying to express subjectivity in a variety of different forms. Every culture has that. Like, it's not unique to any culture. It's common to every single culture.
Yeah, but how do you determine which one is right?
Well, this is the thing. I would say that, like, in terms of the expression of subjectivity, the issue is that every individual culture thinks that they create a language game or a game which values only their culture or their conceptions. Now, I would say that we have to cross-communicate and hold in common our understandings of what is good and right in order for something to be something to have any possibility of truth value. Like if for example, if I was to say like this is good, and then you were to go, no, it's bad, and then I was to just dismiss what you said, I would be assuming that it was good. I would be acting like I wouldn't be able to give if I didn't like allow for argumentation and debate around it. I essentially would be ungrounded. Now, I think that there are a lot of socio-political regimes that are unfounded, like all over the world. I think that many in which I probably exist in are unfounded. Like notions of
Why?
good. Well, I would say that, like, in terms of what I'm trying to express my will. Okay, I'm trying to express my subjectivity, and that is a tangible, measurable thing. Like, have I managed to express my freedom to the greatest overall possible degree or not? And
Why should freedom be the standard of like why is that a good thing? Or
okay, well, it's more of the thing that I can't help but want. So, like in when I'm trying to engage and when I act, I'm doing it for a reason. Okay, so like what's behind every action, and let's say we point towards something like desire, right? Like everyone does something because they desire something. Like they desire the world to be a certain way, to look a certain way. They desire to live in a certain place and experience certain things. They desire to have a certain life, or even a certain moment. And in that, they are trying to bring around and manifest an overall goal, which is basically designed to bring around some sort of positive notion.
for their own tribe.
Well, this is the thing. The tribe itself has formulated this as a conception of expression of will. Like, am I expressing, like, if we do this, we are being more efficient, and they work through these logical problems. So if I start off, and this is what Aristotle basically says, if I start off with like, let's say a city, And in the city, there are multiple institutions, one for war, one for medicine, so on and so on. But war and medicine being contradictory. Medicine's trying to save people's lives, whilst war's trying to take them. Now, what Aristotle would say is that if it was truly contradictory, we are going to have to work out what the standard is that exists between them in order to alleviate this confliction, right? So when I'm engaged in this, when I'm engaged in trying to express my overall, have a good life, I'm going to go, wait a minute, okay, so what is more valuable, saving people's lives or taking people's lives? And then you look to the...
What if saving people's lives means taking people's lives?
Well, that would be perhaps argue the unity between them. Then you say like, okay, we may need an army, but we don't have to be barbarians and warmongers and stuff like that. That would be like an army for peace. Like, so for example, like having an army for the sake of not going to war. Because if you didn't have an army, you might end up in war because people will attack you. And that's fair enough. But then that's
my understanding. Like, I would say that I'm a utilitarian nationalist. I believe that seeing how my people have been like historically on the precipice of fucking extinction, I believe that we should have an army, but like I don't care about ethnic or genetic or cultural reason. I just utilitarian, like we need an army because that prevents a war just by existing. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's fair enough. I think that's it. Like that's the idea behind MAD, isn't it? Like with mutually assured destruction, if everyone has nuclear weapons, everyone's not going to use nuclear weapons, and and I think that and it's somewhat true. I think it's got a decent amount of logic to it. But I think that in terms of this, I think that I would argue that we're all trying to express subjectivity. Like the very reasons for action, to engage in action urging behavior and endorse any given desire, is to be able to go like there is a value in one experience over another, which I would argue for. Now the only thing that's changing isn't the actual experience of value. The experience of value within the individual's life is something that we could measure. What is changing is our beliefs about that experience. Do you know what I mean?
So wait, so you're saying that you can measure the value? You mean like emotional value that a person experiences in their life?
It would be it wouldn't just be like emotional value, but like something like pain, pleasure, like suffering versus well-being, that kind of thing.
Would you? I'm saying, like, I heard this from doesn't Dennis Prager believe that being happy equates to moral goodness?
I don't really watch Prager, so I don't know anything he says.
No, I remember somebody whatever, never mind, making like a shit post about him. No, but so do you believe that the experience of pleasure indicates that something is morally good?
Not in and of itself, because I think that an individual's conception of like their own pleasure, like, so for example, something being good, I would say that good is a universal and the instances of pleasure is particular. So in my experience, so for example, taking a drug could be pleasurable, but it could overall harm my future experiences and lead to more suffering in the end. Now, the only way that I could genuinely work out what was valuable and what is valuable to subjectivity is through universals. Now, this is what I think is the important thing. I don't think egoism makes sense because I don't think that our egos come from within us. I don't think that there is something like I'm not born like conscious of myself and all that nonsense. Like I'm born like pretty much a dumb beast and I'm educated. And then through my education, I gain self-consciousness. I gain language and my ability to be self-aware. And then, but in that, what consciousness and self-consciousness actually, the foundation of that isn't me. It's actually us all. Like when we've created these concepts that are universally applicable. And if they're not universally applicable, like if they're not applicable to everyone, then it is, there'll be an epistemological flaw. So the only, so for example, if me and you, and this is kind of Hegel's point about a master-slave dialectic, we are both trying to find out what is good for us. And if I talk to you and you're like, well, what's good for me is you to die. And if I'm like, well, what's good for me is me not to die, and we disagree. Now, yours is a rejection of my will, like an absolute rejection of my subjectivity, and so I can never find myself within it. So we can never actually develop a language game. We can never actually communicate.
Why do you have to be part of that discussion? Why can it be immoral if you? Why is your standard of one's will being superseded inherently immoral? Like why is that the standard?
Because I would say that like in terms of why, like in terms of the action, like to understand why we are acting in the first place is the fundamental like question. So I think was it Ayn Rand says. A whim is a desire from which the desirer does not care to know the cause, right? Like understanding the foundations for your desire, to understand what you are actually moving towards, what you are willing towards, it, allows you to make essentially rational decisions about what is better or worse given, experiential criteria, like understanding like the ability to even construct the standard is against your investigation. If you don't investigate,
it's predicated on bias as to what is the moral.
But everything's predicated on bias. Like so, for example, like
exactly.
look at it like this. Like look at it like this. Like science is predicated on bias, but science still has the possibility of objectivity because of the method that they use to try and eliminate bias as much as possible. Because the elimination of bias creates the overall highest possibility of achieving a given end.
Well,
My point is that this is what Aristotle says. Any proposed end, if we apply logic to it, will lead to the same universal principle, because overall, what we are all trying to achieve is fundamentally the same thing from a different person's point of view.
I don't think so. Sorry, that's the thing. I immediately forgot what you just said, and it's so frustrating and kind of depressing. I have terrible short-term memory.
Oh, it's cool. I'm totally with you. I have terrible.
Sorry. I guess like to. Oh my God! What? Yeah, but you can objectively prove, for example, that a specific chemical has the specific property because you can objectively recreate it in a lab. I don't see how you can do that with age of consent or resource laws, borders. I don't see how you can do that.
Well, consent is a really good one, because I think consent. One, I think that the universality of consent, funnily enough, is something that is, I think
there's universality at all.
Do you not really? Like, look at it like culturally. Like there is like culturally, most cultures agree that there are limits to consent. That an individual is incapable of consenting to certain actions being done to them. That an individual's having their consent violated if a person.
This is very disturbing, but I can find 10 people right now that don't believe that consent. They don't even know the consent.
Oh yeah, you could find people. I'm talking about like laws and legal systems. I would say like most legal systems.
I think. Wait, I believe I said age of consent. Not like consent is a specific.
Yeah, I mean, age of consent is a specific instance of the same. And it's
not universal at all.
Yeah, no, like the age range isn't universal, but I would say that like the actual, like what I'm trying to point to is that the concept behind it is fairly universal. People talk about consent almost universally between cultures, and really like look. So if I look at consent within medicine, we have consent within legal practices, within trades.
I mean, there are cultures that still believe that slavery is completely fine and normal.
There is.
I mean, I wouldn't say Britain. I mean, America, at the very least, was literally created by people who believed and enshrined the idea that slavery was completely normal.
Well, yeah, and then they grew up. But the thing is that like it's.
I don't think they grew up. They just technologically didn't need it anymore.
No, I think they grew up. I think that there was an aspect of both. Like, don't get me wrong. I think there was a capitalist incentive. Like, I think that like that's undeniable. Like the North needed cheaper labor, and so on. But I think that in terms of like there was other civil rights. No, but there was other civil rights movements going on at the same time, which essentially caused political instability and moved towards it, because a lot of people didn't actually agree with slavery. There was a lot of people who thought it was unethical.
Yeah, you have people, sure, but like culturally, I think that if they didn't have a capitalist incentive to replace slavery, that would have never gone away.
No, I don't think that's true.
Abolitionists were a minority.
for a time, and then they became a majority. But this is
No,
this is the point. Like,
I don't think
and
so.
it's like if you take
I,
Britain, like for example, Britain outlawed slavery way before the United States,
yeah.
and then France obviously even before Britain, like Europe massively, and that really started from, if we look back philosophically, it started from a movement of individuals questioning, certain doctrine and whether it was true or not. And a lot of that came, like, people actually try to use, like, for example, scientific analysis to try and justify it. And all of these movements, like, for the fact that they were
Yeah.
trying to ideologically justify themselves, showed themselves trying to sell the ideology because it was in their interests, while other groups of individuals analyzed the ideology and found it wanting. They thought, like, this is
Well,
unjustified.
it was in their interest. For example, the North was an interest to remove this like
Yeah, but it
competitive
wasn't in
like.
the interest of the British Empire to nearly bankrupt itself trying to capture slave ships. So this
I
is
don't know. I think projecting power on Brazil, and I need to read more on that, but I don't think that it like reject because they still continued colonialism. The British Empire was still very profitable.
yeah,
And
the very much so. But like the conceptions of colonialism versus slavery was different. They didn't think that an individual was necessarily like it's kind of like when people talk about like hierarchies of values, like certain people are so valuable, other people are more valuable, and so on. Like I don't think it's necessarily like incompatible. I think that it's, don't get me wrong, I think that an individual who has come to the realization that slavery is wrong will, if they logically work through the concept, which I would say is equality, they will find that it was essentially unjustifiable. Like take for
I
example,
don't think.
like
I don't,
in is actually holding Hegel's phenomenology of spirit right now. Like in this, there's a section which is called it's called, where is it?
I just wanted to add it. Sorry, I know, like because I thought I would keep forgetting. But people like, for example, Abraham Lincoln did not believe in equality at all. He
Oh
still
no!
fought for
Oh,
it.
I think they did. I think in different ways. I don't think people realize that the
Absolutely
concept.
not. He believed that he believed. I don't want to quote the exact word that he used, but he believed that the African American was in no way equal to the white man, and he believed that
I
it
don't
was
think people
inferior.
realize that, like, so for example, equality as a concept hasn't always meant what it means today. And as a concept, it's been philosophically developing for the last 2,000 years, especially if we see that it's originating primarily through two traditions that made it global, which was the ancient Greeks, and they believed in slavery, by the way. So
Yeah,
equality in its instancing was compatible with slavery in ancient Greece, and in its instancing in Christianity was compatible with slavery. Equality didn't mean the same thing. Like equality under God, for example, just meant like was an association of identity between
I
multiple
agree.
individuals.
What seems to be defined as equal and moral terms seem to change with generation, cultural shifts, and it seems very
I
subjective.
don't think it's subjective. I think that it runs through a logical paradigm and it progresses logically. So an individual associates themselves with a given group of individuals for a certain reason. Then they find that their interests, if they hold that reason to be for their self-association, they find that their interests are going to be excluded and not met because it's usually hegemonic. A given class of
Yeah.
individuals is given greater power than them, and they are also finding that the expression of their interests is being limited to a certain abstract, unjustifiable framework, like in religion. Like people believe, like, oh, all of a sudden, like God told me that I'm going to be happy if I fulfill these rules, but actually this is making me fucking miserable, and that is like one of the ways that we get through. But also they find that it's creating a greater amount of unhappiness, and then there is logical contradictions within that ethic, and those logical contradictions are how we move from, and this is the Hegelian point, from thesis to antithesis to synthesis. We move from
But
a
that's okay. So that's the thing. I'm a big old simpleton. So I'm literally my country's equivalent of a redneck. So I've got to learn it, man. But doesn't like Hegel like believe in an end point to history, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, he does.
but
Uh,
I think that's just like the idea that we're sort of progressing to a moral truth. I think that's what you mean. Sorry if I'm.
Kind of.
I
I
think.
mean, I would take ethics like so. Hegel actually like splits ethics and morality in half, right? So he basically says morality would be your experience of value, that which is like almost self-evident, like because like when people talk about what is good, what is bad, and you're like, look, you experience good and bad. It's like it's well-being, suffering. These are the values that you experience in your life.
Sorry,
Ethics.
I don't believe that's. I mean, we've like gone morally worse in some parts in history. We've become worse than the Roman Empire. I mean, the Roman Empire had a multi-ethnic, as brutal as it was, and it committed
Actually,
genocide,
funnily
sure, but
enough,
it had like a multi-ethnic society, and the slaves, like slavery in Rome, as bad as it was, is nowhere bad as chattel slavery now in America.
well, wait a
I
minute.
believe so. I could be
You
wrong.
think that? Wait a minute. One. I'd say that the Roman Empire was like Hegel actually sees it as a dip in terms of self consciousness. You see, what Hegel tries to point out really is that what every society is trying to do is it contains a notion of ethics, which is a self consciousness for an individual to try and actualize their own ends, to express their own subjectivity, to meet their own interests.
Yes.
Now, I think we both agree with that. Now, what he's saying is, since every society is trying to do that, and it all relates ontologic, like it all relates to people and their expression of their will. If the best society always, if we were to judge society to society, is the one that expresses the will of its people to the greatest overall possible degree. Now, what
Oh
Hegel then,
wow, that's a horrible idea.
well,
I'm
this
so,
is
that
see no, like
Germany
because
expressed
no, see, this is the
expressed
thing.
its will. Sorry.
This is the
Go on.
thing. Like Hegel would see like somewhere like Nazi Germany, for example, because I knew it was going to go there because it sounds almost
Yeah, of
nationalistic and
course.
fascist as a mistake.
Triumph is very.
The understanding of the self to exist within the boundaries of a given country is nonsense. The self is a concept. It exists in the mind, and so its application is to mind itself. So why should I associate with other Germans more than I should associate with, let's say, the entire European, continent, or for example, the Western Hemisphere, or the
So you
entire
believe
globe? And
sort of a human consciousness instead of like a ethnic, con- like regional consciousness, I guess.
yeah, that's the thing. Like he would argue that like it's all like so. For example, some people actually try to call Hegel racist. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that he
I
was
don't know
probably
anything
a bit
about
racist. Like I mean, he wrote in like the like 18th century,
Sure,
and he was definitely sexist. He just thought women were
of course.
just incapable of reason. And the thing
He
is,
was a gamer. Let's just say he was a gamer.
that no, he was definitely backward, but at the same time, like for 300 years ago, he was quite forward thinking.
Sure.
But the thing is that he still thought like so when he analyzed different cultures and he analyzed, let's say, African cultures and so on like that, he would be incredibly critical, obviously, but then believed that they could progress exactly to the exact same place as Germany was where he was talking. He just thought that they were further behind in terms of the conceptual development and that sociological
See,
structure.
but
And
that seems to be his bias. I think this is
but
entirely
no, but
come
like
from the
no,
bias.
I will. The thing is, I will say like one reason that he makes that point is not because he thinks Germany is the best. Like he doesn't think that Germany's necessarily the best place in the whole world,
But he
and it
thinks it's
couldn't be
above
better.
Germany. It's above Africa. That's the thing.
Well, what he thinks is that in Africa at that time, that individuals are being. He points
Exactly.
towards power structures. He constantly points towards power structures, and he says that like individuals who are, and he points towards, for example, and his history. Don't get me wrong, his history is terrible, but again, it's 300 years out of date. But
Yeah.
he points towards various power structures throughout history, and every power structure which only expresses the interests of a certain class of individuals, he sees that as a self-consciousness from which, if an individual takes a slave mentality on, they are actively limiting their desires irrationally. And so every time an individual's asked to limit their desires irrationally, and not based on a universal conception of the expression of subjectivity, he sees that as a form of manipulation. They have been indoctrinated into some sort of, sociocultural regime. Now, he thinks
Sure,
that
but
it's
he was
universal.
indoctrinated too.
Yeah, no, but he knows that. And he knows that,
Ah,
and he goes to say that the child of every next generation is better than the genius of this one. He thinks that what's happening is that self-consciousness is constantly evaluating in its application itself. Am I free? is this doing what I think it's doing? And we are logically analyzing what we're doing. Now, I think that he's absolutely right in saying that, but with one caveat, and that comes from Karl Marx, where he basically says, yeah, we are, but like the people who are telling us how to think in the first place have already constructed conclusions from which we assume, and then, you know, it runs out like that, with power structures basically telling us how to think and feel, and hegemonic constructions of self ultimately leading us to hell.
So like Jordan Peterson's lobsters.
Like well, Jordan Peterson's lobsters, I don't even know where to go with that, because he's like that's. But kind of like, it's kind of like, you know, like imagine there was some big bad boy lobster telling you like what kind of a like I get all the lady lobsters and you get none of the lady lobsters. He would see that as a master slave dialectic, and Karl Marx would say that's how it works. Like institutions produce people just as much as people produce institutions, and that's like cultural hegemony, which I think is unfortunately true. But at the same time, we can then analyze power structures, and that's where you start to come into the analysis of ideology. Is my ideology itself expressing what I believe it to express, and why do I want to express this thing in and of itself? And I think when we gauge that kind of skepticism, we can, you know, analyze what, you know, Zizek calls the sublime object of ideology. Like understanding the thing which I can't talk about in my language, you know, understanding why I have to express everything through this sort of mainframe. And to do that, I need to essentially realize that there is an aspect from which like is unspeakable. And as soon as I realize that there is something that's unspeakable, then I realize that's what I'm talking through. It's like looking through your eyes. If you can't see your eyes, but in knowing that you can't see your eyes, you're knowing essentially what you're looking through. And that's where he takes this kind of like we need a mirror. We need something that essentially reflects and understands our like negates our conception of self. I thought that like all of this was me, and then I look in the mirror and I realize that all I am is that person looking in the mirror. Like all of this experience is actually not me. What I am is a person stood in a room, and that's really what I think Hegel's basically pointing out. In terms of self-consciousness, what we are doing is constantly negating our essentially value experiences and our desires, which have been given to us by power structures, analyzing them, and we essentially work on it. And I think that the reason I was trying to find a section in this is there's a section called, I think it's the Lord and Bondsman, which is like essentially the first master-slave, lordship and bondage.
Kinky.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. But sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and we agree with this, and I think even, as you said, even Hegel agreed with this. What is like all of these concepts of self-perception, of morality, they're all at the end of the day just his bias, and should be taken, in my opinion, as okay. Maybe if I try to sort of explain my conception of morality, maybe I can try to. So the way I see it is that basically the reason I became vegan is that I don't see humans of any more value than I see. Hello, sorry?
I was just saying, what a lad. Good lad. Sorry, continue.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, man. I've been treated like a fucking alien ever since I became vegan.
I know the feeling. People do this to me, and I continue. Sorry.
Yeah, man. We it's completely unseen in my country. Like, because dairy is like completely normal. Like, not meat so much, but dairy is just like the everything of Albanian cuisine. So, and the fucked up thing is that I work at a bakery making pizzas.
I've worked in food places as well. Like, I know the feeling. It's bullshit. You got to live though. You got to I know the crack.
I just wanted to explain. So the reason I became a vegan was simply because I legitimately do not hold any moral value to a human that I don't hold to a spider or a crayfish or a amoeba. I didn't, like, because people believe that sort of vegans elevate animals to humanity. Maybe others do. I don't. To me, I simply lowered humanity, reduced it to that of a slug. To me, I simply believe that we are just a more intelligent version of your everyday squirrel. because I
I
just
don't
like
think you're necessarily wrong. I don't think.
I know that you're gonna disagree with that, but
No, I
to
don't.
me,
I, not really. I don't really disagree with it. Really.
like I view, okay, so here's the thing. I'm not I'm not a person that understands philosophy like at all. I'm just look at it like a behavioral, like subconscious way. I look at an animal, look at it for a long time, and I've grown up so a little bit like a hermit, hunting crayfish. I never used to eat them. I just like the activity of catching crayfish. They're interesting creatures.
I used to fish as well, like when I was younger. Yeah, I know the feeling.
Nice, yeah. So like with like a net or like traditionally with a rod.
Like a rod, like yeah. To be honest, like what put us off is actually seeing someone like. So I didn't really catch very much because I was shit. But like when I did do it and I did catch some stuff. One time I actually caught a crab. Well, actually, the
Nice.
crab caught the line. Like as in like it grabbed the line, and so when I pulled it up, it was just like holding on to the line, and then just like ate what was on the line, and then scurried away. And I was just like, what? I was like, what the fuck? I was like, it just had me life. But the thing is that and then only time I caught a fish, like I caught like a fish, and then someone like just like I didn't really want to kill them, because like it wasn't that I was like a vegan or anything like that. I wasn't doing it to kill animals, I was just doing it because I wanted to fish.
Yeah.
Like I like the activity, as you say. And then someone just fucking murks this fish in front of us, like smacks it in the head with a wrench.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, like I don't want to do that, man. And then I just
me
thought
neither, turn off.
that's the thing. So I just ended up giving it up. So anyway, sorry, continue.
I remember as a child, I was going to school and there was this woman. She kept some bricks outside of her apartment, and she's like surrounded, and she had a lot of kittens. And this cat had like kittens, and she surrounded like the location with bricks. And I would like give the kittens some milk, and every day I went to school. Then one day, her child just collapses the bricks, smiling, and kills all the kittens. And to this day, when I see ketchup, I feel a little bit disgust because like the splattering of the blood splattered on me everywhere.
No, it's horrible. Like one thing is you've got to be a bit of a fucking idiot to stack loose bricks up next to kittens. Like if I'm honest, that's just the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, I was a stupid. Like I didn't do anything. I just saw a bunch of kittens. My neurons went, let's just feed it milk. I didn't think anything of the structural integrity of that woman had built. I didn't do anything with it.
No. I mean, like kids are idiots as well. Like babies, like
Sure.
forks in plug sockets, like that kind of thing. Like honestly, like I don't think and then in terms of like I think as well, like kids, like they have autonomous morality. Like they have no conceptions of morality beyond the imminent experience. Like as you say, like something fires in their head and they do it. Like it's not necessarily something which is well thought out. And then
children are artists. That's the thing. Observing children all my life, because that's the thing. I grew up in post-war Kosovo, and schools were pretty much a factory of violence, and sexual violence and physical violence. Boys would rape girls in school without any supervision by their teachers. No one would care, especially I had two boys in my class that had like connections. One was the son of allegedly, it was rumors, of course, could be lie, it was like the son of a mafia boss. The other one was like the son of a teacher at the school. They would pretty much rape the girls and nobody would do anything. That's what came, I believe, oh wait, there's no difference from these people and animals. And it used to be reductive, but now
animals are
global
better. I think animals are better.
Sure. I mean, I personally I'm biased because I look at my dog and he's cute, but like fucking dogs are rapists too.
Well, I think it's more of like this is the thing. I don't think that they can be. I think that this is the point. Like it's the fact that a human can know better that makes like evil possible. Sure. Like I think evil's not possible in animals, and I think that's like the difference. Like you look at an animal, it does what it does, and you're like, right, well, it like a bear kills a human, and you're like, right, well. And that was just like it was a bear. It was just being a bear. Well, when a human kills a bear, you're like you can ask the human the question, why did you do that?
Yeah, you're right.
And that's the point I think that I'm getting at really in this whole discussion. The asking the sufficient give me sufficient reasons for your desire, for your actions. Give me the justification for producing this meaning within the world, and that is the objectivity of ethics.
So what if people that can do horrendous acts, but they can sufficiently justify what you subjectively feel to be horrendous?
Well, this is the thing. I would ask anyone to sufficiently justify it, and I'll do my best to.
I can like go find your random Nazi that will give you a 10-point like well-explained seminary. Where
I've debated Nazis before, and like the thing is, what they all relate to is like one, either like primordial human nature, when there's no such thing as human nature. Like if we look towards what a human is, they're entirely artificial, which is why sociocultural relativism is probably the hardest thing to argue against.
Okay, I may be misremembering your video. But like, didn't you say that it comes from our nature, or a concept of morality comes from our nature?
It comes from our
That it's
experience.
something natural?
No, I wouldn't say that it's like this is the thing.
I
I'm an
think you said
existentialist.
so in your video, but again, I could be misremembering because I read shit.
It depends on what you conceive nature to be. So, for example, I'm an existentialist. So, so for example, Alistair McIntyre, who I mentioned in that video, he believes in a human nature. But I think he might actually be an existentialist as well. But I have to double check that. But this is the debate: does essence precede existence, or does existence precede essence? And I would say that existence always comes first. Or natures essentially are formed from our engagement with the world. There are certain things that are indeterminate that we can't control, like being set on fire hurts, things like that. But in terms of actually having a nature which determines our actions, no, I don't think that's possible. If you actually want to see why I don't think that's possible, I made a video called Determinism Debunked. I don't think that you can explain human action through like evolutionary biology or psychology or anything like that. It's like metaphysically impossible, because the actual engagement in the field is in and of itself an act of mind, and the production of objects that it's analyzing are also acts of mind. And so our conceptions of nature itself is something that we've had to produce together, which is why, like, when we talk about self-consciousness and its development, this is what I would say is the fundamental foundation of ethics. Like for example, Hegel in this section, I'll actually just quickly read this little bit out. It's unbelievably convoluted, and you probably hate it, but here we go. So, for the independent self-consciousness, it is the only pure abstraction of the I that is its essential nature. And when it does develop its own differences, this differentiation does not become a nature that is objective and intrinsic to it. Thus, self-consciousness does not become an I that is in its simplicity, it is genuinely self-differentiating, or on that absolute differentiation means identical with itself. On the other hand, the consciousness that is forced back into itself becomes formative activity, its own object in the form of the thing that it has fashioned. It is at the same time sees in the Lord a consciousness that exists as a being for itself. But for the subservient consciousness, such these two moments itself as an independent object, and an object as a mode of consciousness, and hence its own essential nature, falls apart. Since, however, the form of the being for itself, or for us, or in themselves, the same since the notion of independent consciousness, the intrinsic being is consciousness, the moment of intrinsic being or thinghood, which receives its form by being fashioned in no other substance than consciousness. So consciousness essentially receives its form from the concepts that's applied to it. It's only given itself when it gets an I. The I is essentially this ability to differentiate between me and you and see ourselves as independent organisms, independent beings, operating in separate independent modes of existence. And in doing that, I gain like the possibility of an identity. And Hegel sees this as inherently tied into power structures. Essentially, the Lord is trying to satisfy their desires that they experience in like hedonistically, whilst if I was the subservient class, I would be trying to express their desires as well, which means my self-consciousness now is alien. I am now alienated from my own expression of pleasure, and then this is where essentially you get like a master-slave like essentially a point. But the whole dialectic from which we both gain our concept of self and our identities in this dynamic, requires us both to understand ourselves as containing each other, which is why later he says, now it is true for that this self-consciousness, the essence is neither an other than itself, or nor the pure abstraction of the I, but an I which has otherness within itself, from the form of thought, so that the otherness it has directly returned to itself. So like, I only understand myself through the eyes of the other, and so I can only understand myself with the other, which means we are mutually dependent. And this is where Hegel sees equality come from. It's not like, this is why equality is a constantly developing concept. Like in ancient Greece, we are mutually dependent.
I don't agree that it's developing. It's sometimes even regressing. I mentioned Rome before. For example, Rome had something akin to an even like where like multiple ethnicities can like more of a state identity or a cultural identity more than ethnic delineation. You know, those same ethnicities that cooperated peacefully under the Roman Empire are now at war in specific parts of the world.
Perhaps. I mean, like, look at it like this. Like, I mean, but there was also class-based structures in there, and then people within that were being enslaved.
There's
and
still that.
It was, yeah, but I mean, like the conceptions of I and the self from which Hegel's referencing, he actually saw as regressing in the Roman Empire because the individual stopped understanding themselves in relation to their own freedom. And he saw
I don't think that's true.
Well, I think it's somewhat true because like what he points towards is the political system. So the political system in Rome was very plutocratic. You know, it was very elitist. Whilst the political system,
I mean, it's still that way.
Oh, I completely agree. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna say I'm a socialist. I'm 100% think that. But at the same time, the development of democracy, we have democratized a considerable more than we used to. Also, like, I mean,
I would like to apologize to your audience. I don't know how to fix it, but my microphone keeps recording even my breaths because I have one of those shitty microphones that has like the dangly microphone hanging from the headphones. Well, so sorry for sounding like Darth Vader.
It's cool, man. I appreciate the conversation nonetheless. Like, obviously, it's very interesting. But what I'm trying to say, really, with this whole this point is like, I don't even disagree that it can regress. I think Nazi Germany was a regression, for example, and I would say the Roman Empire is somewhat a regression in terms of its movement from the political system of Greece. Like, it bastardized the political system in Greece and used it to serve certain individuals in Rome. And this happens all the time. Sorry, continue.
So again, sorry, I keep interrupting you. I have anxiety. Like, I'm gonna forget this. I keep blanking out. But like, as I was trying to say, like, we have also regressed in some parts from the Romans, specifically like for example, something that was normal in Rome, like black legionaries, you know, roaming Rome free became completely, you know. Then we moved to Mussolini, who killed gassed people in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I do think that morality, I think that ethics can regress. I
don't think it regresses. Okay, so my conception of morality is very I don't even know, blunt. I believe that humanity, like, we do whatever is convenient to us. We're like animals, basically. We move, we do whatever we want, then we write books about it to try and justify what we just did.
Well, I think that happens, unfortunately, a lot. But I would say that the reason I would say it's a regression is it's a regression of self-understanding and self-knowledge. So, for example, in my association, like you pointed towards Rome, people's associating, ability to associate with other tribes, for example, might have been greater than that in terms of comparative to Mussolini and fascism. I think that fascism is probably one of the largest regressions that we've ever seen. And the reason I would argue that is because that the individual understands themselves by a very unjustifiably confined criteria. If I was to try and understand myself, the best thing to do is see what's common between myself and all other beings. And what I'm going to see is consciousness, subjectivity, trying to find, you know, the good life. It's all going to actually, everyone in the world, and animals as well, all trying to see, all trying to express their will and try and experience something positive. Now, that if I engage in that as the foundation of why am I acting, if I was to ask the question why am I acting, and I say the good life or some experience of value, if I find that ultimately it's all going to boil down to that there has to be an action urging process that leads me to try and produce a positive value. And then if I see that the reason that I think that something is positively valued is because of a certain identity that I've endorsed, and that identity was given to me to suit a certain class of individuals, like if I was going through like Nietzsche's genealogy of morality, and I was to go all the way back and go, wait a minute, this was produced by a priest class, or wait a minute, this was produced by a political class, or wait a minute, this was produced, by like certain self-serving individuals. What I see is a master-slave dialectic, which is limiting my self-consciousness for the benefit of their self-consciousness. Now, for Hegel, ultimately, what we can recognize is that everyone fundamentally has an ontological value. There is a truth that everyone is valuing something positive or negative, and that is the objectivity of ethics. Now, what is the subjectivity of ethics is our conceptions of it, our understanding of it. If we rather than trying to see it on an egoistical level, if we recognize that if we formulate an ego and we put ourselves in that box, we can actually produce harms to ourselves that we would otherwise be free from. I think a good example is things like perpetration-induced traumatic stress. You could even see addiction. I think some of the saddest people in the world are those that consume the most. And Hegel actually points towards why this is. Basically, objects will not bring you satisfaction. You will never feel satisfied from an object if you gain some sort of material being. Because as soon as you've done that, you've taken possession of it. And once you have possession of it and you have it, well, you can't desire it anymore because it's part of you. So your desire, obviously constantly operating outwards, seeks more. And so, or seeks something else. So you seek more of what you have or something else. And so you constantly feel, this is why Lacan describes us as a lack. We have basically a hole in ourselves that we're always trying to fill. Now, Hegel sees only one solution to this, a relationship with the other. If we have a positive relationship with other individuals that allows us to essentially, if I want something from you, but I can obtain it only from your permission, I never actually possess it. Like, I never possess you. I only possess something from which you give me. And vice versa. If it's mutual satisfaction, that is the only way to fill each other's, like, essentially the hole in each other. Because essentially, if we can never truly own each other and so become, dissatisfied.
That's what I disagree with. That is definition of happiness only true happiness being reached with if there's like a mutually consentive way. That simply doesn't seem to be true. And I don't think that humanity will ever move to a way where we will have universal consensus. I think the end point of history is when we all die as a species or evolve into something else that has completely different conceptions.
Well, I think that this is why, like, Hegel, like, the reason that this is called the phenomenology of spirit in the first place is because, like, this notion of species is in and of its first place separate. So, like, if you describe us as a species, people wouldn't have seen us necessarily as a species at one point. They would have saw tribes as essentially independent of each other. More of a genus in Aristotelian terms. So when we see a species, what we are doing is associating ourself in terms of a common overall identity, like I am human. Now, Hegel sees as that, like, these universal conceptions of self as giving the greatest overall truth, essentially the greatest overall foundations for truth. If it's true for you, and we just go through, like, ad infinitum, and it's true for us all, then it is most likely to be true. If it's only true for, like...
But I don't think that's ever going to be... that's certainly not now, it's not the truth.
Well, I think it's not the truth that we've reached that point, but I think that we're progressing more and more, and I think that people are...
and that's what we disagree with.
Well, this is the thing. Like, why would we disagree? Like, look at like the last so many years. Let's say like last 100 years, what we've actually managed to do. Like, don't get me wrong. There's been 2 world wars, but at the same time, we can look towards the abolition of institutional racism for the most part. Abolition.
In some parts of the world, it's literally getting worse. I mean,
okay, yeah, and I think that, like, yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I think that part of that is to do with 2 things. One, the nationalistic morality from those nations is worsening the problem. The fact that they are self-associating with only a select group of individuals means that epistemologically, that foundation is so unbelievably biased. And this is where this is the whole point of objectivity. Like, if we agree that there is a certain ontological end which we all seek, which is an experience of positive and negative, then sorry,
go on. But that's the thing. Sure. Okay. So I'm literally just summing it together because I'm afraid I will forget it later. So what you're saying is that it is objectively true that we all have a conception of what is good and what is wrong, right? All of us, all human beings, right?
Sorry, could you say that again? I didn't really catch that.
Are you saying that Oh fuck! I might have forgotten to point this out. My apologies.
No,
so,
cool,
are you saying that all human beings have a sense of right and wrong, although that is subjective from person to person?
I think that all human beings act for reasons, and reasons can be right or wrong, in relation to why they believe they are acting, and also, essentially the action urging process that exists within them. So, I would say that all individuals have essentially an experience within the world which is motivating them towards positive and away from negative, and that's the ontological foundation for ethics.
And I would say that what is beneficial to one group of people or to one person could be detrimental to the other, or could be completely immoral to the other. And I think our conception of morality is subjective.
But then, so for example, that would become an understanding of ethics. So if I was to say something is good for one but not good for the other, and I can point to a reason why, that doesn't make ethics objective. It makes the experience of value relative to a given.
Exactly.
But that doesn't make it. That doesn't make it. Yeah, but something can be both relative and objective, and true.
Okay. I suppose then that's way above my pay grade, because if it can be both at the same time, then I suppose.
Well, Hegel sees it all truth is relative for Hegel. This is what he's basically saying. It's not that truth is for example, it's not that there isn't a right and a wrong. It's that dependent upon our society, do we have different conceptions of right and wrong, which contain different reasons and so on. But that ultimately reason itself, the logical foundation of our arguments, can be shown to be more or less correct in relation to that thing that is it's analyzing. And so he thinks that as self-consciousness develops, that we would, let's say, if I find out what's good for a dog isn't what's good for a cat, then what I now have is not a greater ethical knowledge from which I can treat cats and dogs with value and experience that in a different way. The whole point is that I consider all of these different identities, all of these different conscious instances of conscious experience.
Sure. Yeah. That's oh my god. That's why I keep interrupting you, because I literally just forgot.
Oh no, it's okay.
No, sorry. Okay, sorry. There was one point prior that I remember. Yeah. Kids, don't get into school fights. It's not gonna end good for you. So yeah, but I don't think there's ever going to be a point in history where we're going to move past nationalism or ethnocentrism.
I mean, I think that
too. God, I hope so. I'm from the Balkans. I hope that thing goes away, but it's never going to go away.
Well, I think the thing is that I think it depends on how we approach the problem. I think that the last thing we'll want to do is start approaching it in a way that just expands the problem, where we're not actually getting rid of nationalism. We're just starting to associate more and more. So for example, aliens come around and we all universally accept our humanity, but only because we're not aliens.
Yeah, you know what I think? Because I've tried to write science fiction. Do you know what I think would happen? Some states would associate with them, some would be against them. The idea that all humanity would work together is silly to me.
Oh, you're probably right. I don't see Russia and America will be trying to buy arms from different kinds of aliens and
exactly. But there's going to be two different alien powers using us as small little.
I know, we'll be the proxy war. That's it. You're absolutely right.
Exactly. Yeah. We're going to be used as a proxy war. But I've tried to write a novel which is sort of touches on that, where this alien species takes more historically oppressed ethnic groups and uses them as collaborationists to fight say the American government, because it doesn't want to, like, why would an alien force bother to move all its spaceships and spend that much? It just sends its fraction of its power, you know.
That's
Why would
actually
it
that's
act any
yeah.
differently
Well,
than
that's the
a
thing. I
human
think,
empire?
and like you're not actually wrong there. I think that like the thing is that like my issue is that to end up in like this is the thing to end up in a situation where we essentially bad faith associate with one another because we are negating the identity of something else is only to reinforce a one-sided dialectic. The realization of what Hegel's really trying to say is that, look, when I try and understand myself as separate to you, I'm rejecting the fact that I'm totally dependent upon you to exist in the first place, and that this is what's called the unity of opposites. For me to be me and you to be you, we have to be opposed. But if we don't recognize that this opposition only exists as a unity, and we're actually totally mutually dependent upon that opposition for any chance of for recognition, then we end up being unable to actually recognize ourselves. We lose the dialectical process, which is like kind of arguably psychoanalytically founded. If you look at children who are severely neglected, and R.D. Laing makes this point
For that, you don't need other cultures.
I mean, like building it up into a cultural basis, I think like is heavier. But if you look at like even just a subjective basis, like an individual's experience, if you look at children who are severely neglected, R.D. Laing argues that individuals who are severely neglected are much more likely to develop things like schizophrenia because of their inability to understand themselves, because their behaviors and aspects of themselves, their desires, haven't been recognized. They've not been able to understand themselves in such a way to regulate their own behaviors and understand the world around them, and so they're much more likely to become psychotic. And I think that this can happen on a socio-cultural basis, and I think this is why. If I understand myself, we all understand ourselves as a they, right? But if I reject my culture, if I see my culture as me, and I reject somebody else's culture, then what I fail to recognize is I've done the exact same thing culturally, and I end up becoming culturally perverse. And you can have a culture which is self-destructive but doesn't realize it's self-destructive, and everyone else is on the outside going, "You're fucking destroying yourselves. Can you not see what you're doing?" And
that's all cultures, though. That's hypocrisy is like inherent to being part of a culture, part of a nation. You have to ignore the horrors that your country have done, and see the other as the evil and yourself.
But the thing is, you don't have to do that, and that's what Hegel's basically saying. Like Hegel says, like you are fundamentally wrong if you do that, because in doing that, you are perpetuating ignorance, which is only going to cause your own suffering. Because, like, well,
why is spreading ignorance wrong?
Well, why is ignorance wrong? So I'd say, like, the only way you could know that ignorance wasn't wrong is if you had knowledge that ignorance was better in the first place.
Exactly. If you're stupid, you're happy. So.
Well, this is the thing. Like, no, but like, what I'm saying is that like you wouldn't even know you are happier being stupid. Unless a smart person is on the outside going, "I wish I was that stupid," but like then there could be someone smarter again going like, "Oh, he thinks he's got problems." Like the thing is that the reality of the situation is that when Aristotle says all men desire to know, the accumulation of information is so necessary for achievement of any particular goal that the analysis of our goal and the achievement of our goal requires knowledge. And so we all desire knowledge to the nth degree. We have an unending desire for knowledge, because in knowing, like for example, let's say I don't want to know about something. I want to know that I don't want to know about that thing.
Yeah, so, that makes sense.
And that's kind of like the argument for knowledge. And so if we do have a desire for knowledge and we have a desire for self-knowledge, then Hegel basically says that like this desire for self-knowledge, if it's made nationalistic, if it's made tribalistic, if it's made like between two individuals and I'm a master and you're a slave, or vice versa, then we have rejected the possibility of self-knowledge to certain degrees, depending on how far it goes. The more we do it, the more likely we are to be more self-destructive and actually be contradictory in our actions.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think that self-contradictory actions and I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, and cultures have gone on despite being self-contradictory.
Well, I can give you an example of cultures that have, like, so for example, like take Nazi Germany. Sure, Nazi Germany is probably the most self-contradictory culture I can think of.
That's the thing. I think that people, and this is might be the most like childish, petty insult I can give. So I apologize if it comes across, but I think that people just certainly it comes the idea of objective morality seems to come from like a emotional belief that, oh, if something is so bad then it surely must be objective. So on Nazi Germany, I don't think that Nazi Germany failed due to a philosophical failing. It failed because it was fucking bombed by America and invaded by China,
Oh, I completely disagree. I think it was totally philosophical. I'll explain why. So like
no.
so like look at it like this, right? Nazis, right, like as a force in Europe were coming from a state which industrialized incredibly quickly after World War One. They're coming from a state which was incredibly united, hating a lot of the world, and had a considerable amount of power and resources. There was no real reason that Nazis should have lost World War Two. Except
absolutely there was. I'm sorry.
No.
They could have had a. They could have had a.
So look at it like this. Look at it like this. Like that leader started the war with Russia far too late, and he ended up plunging them into war at the point of a Russian winter. Good job.
No, he did not invade in the winter.
No, he invaded. He invaded in the summer when he should have invaded in the spring, and that's what his generals told him to do. So his generals were like, "We should have invaded 2 or 3 months ago," and because of that, they ended up fighting in the winter, which made them.
No, there's been a lot of historical revisionism by generals. Sadly, America decided to exonerate these generals, and now the generals have basically rewritten history to put themselves as these objective, we tried to put Hitler to reason. But in fact, when we see it a lot of the time, is Hitler a lot of logical historical decisions.
Well, I mean, there was also Stalin. So we have records of him like giving messages to Stalingrad. We have records of him fucking up with the Bismarck. We have records of him like the guy was. I mean, in an overall way, Hitler was a bit of a fucking moron. Like, if I'm honest, he lost.
Sure.
Like in terms of
a moron, sure.
And even the Holocaust.
Just this point. I refuse this point that his generals have sort of revised history to present themselves as the intelligent ones who try to steer. No, they were morons too. They did a lot of stupid decisions.
Maybe, very possibly. I can't disagree with that. I think Hitler's decision to declare war with the United States. Hitler's decision to sorry, continue.
Look, if Nazi Germany was a highly progressive social democracy that had normal relations with Jews, they would have still lost. No matter what ideology, it was completely based on the objective facts of lack of fucking oil.
I disagree. I think that the reason that
but that's wrong.
Look at the people who won, right? So one, they alienated almost all of their neighbors because they're the ones that started the war. Right, so they alienated almost all of that potential allies within a war.
Many nations who have started wars have won it.
Yeah, I'm not saying they haven't. I'm just saying that like Germany, if it had have been, let's say, more diplomatic, if it had have been less nationalistic, and if it hadn't have pumped a shit ton of its resources in the industrial slaughter of individuals, it may have had a chance of winning. But because it at the time when they were losing the war, they decided to pump more resources into killing people than actually trying to win the war. That is just that's the dumbest ideology that anyone could ever give into. Like,
absolutely. I don't think you can find many. I mean, you can find cultures that have taken that have spent resources more into fucking committing atrocities and actually winning battles than if they won battles. I think the fundamental the reason why Germany lost is not because they had their ideology,
but because
they had a specific ideology. Fundamental reason was lack of oil. The Eastern Front literally failed because of lack of oil.
Why did they have lack of oil? Because Hitler told them to attack Stalingrad, for example, and they didn't go to the oil fields. That was again Hitler being a fucking idiot.
Well, no. That's the thing, because his operation in France was almost like a military. The Blitzkrieg was almost like a military miracle at the time.
Well, I mean, it was more of a massive fucking mistake by the French. Actually, if we look at the Western Front, so the French thinking that they were secure from the Germans like thought that the Germans
with their
would take
bases,
much longer to get through. And then by the time the Allies managed to get to Holland, Holland was on the brink of surrender and were fighting in where was it? It was where was it? Was it actually where we were fighting? Is it no? It was was it Antwerp? No, it wasn't Antwerp. Antwerp?
No, so you mean the movie this is based from? You mean
No,
like
no. There was a place that ended up at the first point, and so the first conflict. By the time we actually managed to get, where were they fighting? It wasn't.
I don't know.
It might have been in. It wasn't in Belgium. It was in Holland. It was in Holland at the time, but then the push through Holland to Rotterdam. Rotterdam surrendered. And so this is just the start of the war. By the time the reason the Western Front collapsed is because there was no, we had built essentially a massive fucking bulwark that they walked around. It was just it was a fucking military disaster. Whoever thought we don't need to cut down all these fucking trees and shit and sort this the fuck out. But anyway,
military stupidity has happened literally in every
single
country.
100%. And Nazi Germany, even given that one, okay, so they did massively push through the Western Front, and economic, essentially the whole economy for one was geared towards mobilization, which meant that if they didn't go to war, they were going bankrupt anyway. So, France and Britain hadn't done that. They hadn't just built up militarily to the point in which they're gonna self-destruct unless they win. Which is
sure, but a lot of other cultures. My point, you can point to this mistake and this mistake, and I can point you to a fucking 1,000 empires who have done similar mistakes.
Oh yeah, there's mistakes all over the place. Yeah.
I think the here's the thing. We both agree that what Nazi Germany did was wrong, and I every single blockbuster bomb. I know this is wrong to say since I'm trying to move to Germany, but every bomb that was dropped on Germany was fucking justified.
Well, this is the thing. Look at it like this.
I'm saying otherwise. No. I'm just saying I don't think Germany collapsed due to its ideology.
Look at it like this. Germany wasn't. Look, if Germany's ideology wasn't so nationalistic and militarily antagonistic, the United States probably wouldn't have got involved.
No, the United States got involved because of Japan.
Well, no. Well, I mean that's no. Well, look if we look at Japan and Pearl Harbor, the United States arguably started that in the first place because they cut the oil reserves off to Japan.
Oh shit! Are you saying
the Pacific War was way more complex?
Part 1?
No, I'm saying the Pacific War was way more complex than just Pearl Harbor.
Sure, yeah, I know they blockaded Japan, sure, but that was due to America's decision.
Yeah. And then also they sent a cruise liner into Japanese waters, knowing that it would get sunk by the Japanese. It went miles off course, full of
exactly. America is a very immoral nationalistic empire. So why?
Well, Pax Americana. I do think we're living under the American Empire, but I think that don't get me wrong.
So why did it win? Why did such a bad empire that had slavery and genocide? Why did it win?
One, I would say that the reason that it was able to ally itself with Britain, France, and the other allies was because of a similar ideology, which was even though it's bad, is still better than Nazism. It's not it's not it's not like I'm saying that there is any given culture with a perfect ideology and whether that culture would win or not, dependent, that's obviously up to materialistic conditions and so on as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's all ideological, but what I'm saying is that Nazi Germany, as this specific example, lost because of its shit ideology. It pumped so much resources into the Holocaust at a point where if it didn't put resources into the Western and Eastern fronts, it was going to lose. It chose to lose because it wanted to express the desire of killing the Jews.
During the Second World War, America spent not as much, of course, not even compared, but it spent resources in interring Japanese people, and it still won the war.
One, America spending resources as the economic powerhouse that it was is not surprising.
So you can have any ideology if you're economic powerhouse?
Well, not really, because your ability to gain economic prowess in and of itself opens itself up to liberalism, which is why the economy of the United States was actually more effective under liberalism rather than like slavery, which is why you said it moved from slavery to liberalism. Like that.
I mean, it from like without slavery, they wouldn't have come to the point of liberalism. Without
arguably not. I mean, like the in terms of technological advancement, but then again, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because other cultures managed to do the same sort of thing. I think that America existed in a very unique position. One, the defending of America when it first, I mean, like, this is so historically there was essentially like the fact that France and Spain went bankrupt, pretty much trying to protect them from us, and then that led us to essentially become economically weaker, and so America managed to grow and it's got a shit ton of resources for its population size. So like it essentially developed really quickly, caught up essentially through free trade because of the ideology. I mean, even the ideology of capitalism is an ideology. What we've found is that free trade, free trade leads to incredible economic growth, and I think that's the truth about capitalism, is that it's been a very successful ideology.
Not always. I mean, here in the Balkans, capitalism has almost completely fucking failed, and countries are dying pretty much.
But I mean that like global capitalism separate to like just like where America was coming from.
But we're talking specifically about America. I mean, free trade fucked over Greece. It fucked over Portugal. I mean, it's not a.
No, I don't even disagree, because I think that there are aspects of free trade which lead to like negatives within which is why the success of, let's say, China is a great example. Like China
or the Soviet Union in World War II, which did not have liberalism, and it still managed to kick those cocksucking Nazis in
Soviet Union is a very specific, it was a very, if we're going to be honest, like the Soviet ability to industrialize, it was reliant upon its ideology. Like if you say it didn't have liberalism, I completely agree. It had something that motivated its population to a greater degree. I mean, look at they had communist Saturdays and Sundays and stuff like that, where people just worked for free. Like the fact that people were putting incredible amount of productive in a productive activities because of the ideology was precisely the reason that the Soviet Union developed as quickly as it did. Like, understanding ideology as separate from economics is just an absolute mistake. Material conditions of a country are totally dependent upon those who are willing to work, and why they're willing to work, who they're willing to work for, how much is being consumed, all of that.
I don't deny that, but at the end of the day, like, a culture can be extremely genocidal and still be efficient and win wars.
Well, I'm not saying that. For example, the Romans weren't necessarily not genocidal, and they were brutal and awful. Technologically,
they were very successful.
But look at it like this: like, they were successful, but I mean, obviously, they were also going against technologically advanced countries the same as themselves, or less than themselves as well, in terms of even ethics. Like, they weren't necessarily going against ethically superior countries. But I would say that,
I mean, it depends. I mean, didn't you say that Greece was sort of ethically more?
Greece was, but at the same time, is it its ability to essentially formulate this is why you had Plato's Republic pop up in Greece, because at the same time they realized that the material contentions of their state were leading towards greater self-destruction. With the Hellenistic wars and stuff, and then this is why in what Plato writes, he's like, we shouldn't be fighting each other, we need to come together, which is essentially what Rome managed to do, is essentially unite massive banners of individuals under clever political schemes. So politically, Rome, I think, although it was less capable ethically in some respects, it also had it was more capable politically. It was more united. It united, as you say, a greater amount of individuals around a single banner. For example, offering citizenship if you worked in the military. They were way more politically advanced than the nations around them, which is one of the reasons that they won. Like, they didn't have to pay for mercenaries because they would get people actually signing into the military. And
like Carthage, which was basically fucked over because they had a huge army of mercenaries and they couldn't have money to pay them, so they fucked them over.
Well, that's it. Greece said the same thing, essentially. They said, I would rather, 100 farmers than, or 10, I think it's 100 farmers than 100 mercenaries, because the farmers won't run away. The thing is that, that's the whole point about ideology in politics. Ideology, ethics, politics, self-understanding, and individuals' duties and responsibilities to the state are totally...
I agree with you, of course. ideology, but I don't think that Adolf Hitler. I think that Adolf Hitler, well, I keep misspelling his fucker's name. If he had sufficient resources, and he could have still gone on with the Holocaust and won
There
the
would
war.
have never been a sufficient amount of resources because he would pump them all into the fucking Holocaust first. That's the problem. It's all capitalist excess. It was all, well, not necessarily capitalist excess, but like the excessiveness of an individual's, of his ideology. The ideology of Hitler was this, and of Nazism was incredibly excessive. It was just this, it's this expression of selfish desire.
We just talked about Rome, which was itself very excessive. I mean,
Rome
America
was very excessive, and that led to its downfall in many cases.
No,
Crassus.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think
for
excess.
example.
That seems a very Christian belief that it's orgies and it's
Oh no!
debauchery led to its downfall.
No, not in every case. And the same thing can happen. Like being frugal and unwilling to expand can lead to the exact same thing. Like we see this in stagnation in economics all the time. But the thing is that like it's not to say that what is to say is that the economic success or the political success or whatever of a given nation is tied into the way that its citizens operate and behave. Like, for example, and the reason I was giving the example of excess in Rome is that, like, understanding what excess is and what is excessive expression of desire and how this can be mediated is fundamental. Like, if Crassus hadn't have tried to just invade, where was it? Where was it? It begins with an A.
Parthia?
No. No.
I don't know.
Actually, was it? Wait one second.
I'm not a Rome guy. I think it's Parthia, but
I think you might be right.
I don't know.
He had molten gold poured down his throat. I remember that.
Yeah, I think that's why George R. R. Martin got it from, like the Viserys. Being whatever. Game of Thrones guy.
It was Carthia, yeah. But like he didn't necessarily.
It was Carthage or Parthia?
It was Parthia, I think. Actually, was it? We met. Actually, no, we met.
I said Parthia, not Carthage.
No, it wasn't Carthage. I know that. That was was that Scipio that fought at Carthage?
Scipio Africanus, yeah.
Yeah.
No, Silicus. I don't fucking know anymore. They're all the same.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I can't go and check.
Yeah, they have the same name. They have like 1,000 Scipios Africanus, 1,000 Caesars. I don't know who's who anymore.
Yeah, but anyway, so like the point is, I'm saying that the ideology of the population is even in terms of its material, how it uses its material wealth, and this is why it's all ideologically dependent. And what I'm saying is that the self-consciousness and the goals of an individual state are judged against this individual's understanding of themselves, of what it is to lead the good life, whether I should endorse an ideological format. And this is why, like, the rational individual, I think if they would analyze whether their culture was good or bad, could look towards ontological foundations for that. Are we expressing what is good for the citizens, or are we expressing what is good for a particular class of individuals? Are we expressing what is good or am I being too, even if I'm being like too selfish, or am I being too selfless and so on like that?
Sure. I agree with you, but when it comes specifically to the case of Germany, no matter what ideology it had, it would have, like you said, if it reached a diplomatic end, sure, like Germany could have not chosen a war path, and it could have sort of developed as an economic power. I'm talking, let's say it came to war in any political system, simply by its population size, by its lack of resources that it needed, specifically oil. It would have lost in any leadership, any ideology, if it started a war with Russia and if it started a war with the West.
I think it could have beat Russia if it would have
take all the resources from the Holocaust and invest them into the war twice, and they would have still lost.
Well, this is the thing. I would disagree. One, because as you say, like as I was saying, like they did put a shit ton of resources into the Holocaust rather than the Eastern Front.
It still wouldn't have mattered.
The way they engaged in the war was fundamentally a problem in the first place. Like they invaded too late. If they had invaded months earlier, they would have probably hit Moscow before.
That was simply a logistical mistake. It wasn't tied specifically to the lateness of it all.
No, but that's the logistical mistake was the realization that they had less of a time frame to engage and win the combat, but that they then, rather than wait, they gave into a desire to invade immediately under the conception that they Germans, being so unbelievably great and better fighters and blah 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 blah, were gonna manage to plow through faster. So like if they hadn't have been so overconfident.
Overconfidence has been the problem of many empires, not just the.
Yeah, but it's 100%. It's an ideological formulation, isn't it?
I mean, we have liberal democracies still. Like this thing, they believe they were going to be successful due to their success in France, due to their sort of almost miraculous success in France, and they were like, "Well, shit, that's going to happen again, right?" That's how governments think. It's not just unique to Adolf Hitler or like racists in general. People, if they have success, will think, "Well, shit, that's going to work again, right?"
Perhaps, but I think that the difference with the Germans were like inherently cocky. It was part of their identity.
Sure.
It was necessary for it to, because we are the fucking Aryan race. We are the master race, man. Of course we're gonna win. It's the same with the Christians. God is with us, and it's part of the ideological formula. Like the fact that they see themselves in that way meant that they engaged in that behavior. They wouldn't. That's the whole point of ethics.
Ideology which saw such a miraculous victory, they'd be like, well, shit, it's gonna work again. Even if they didn't have that part of Nazi ideology, they would have still gotten cocky.
I don't know. I think maybe. I mean, it's unfalsifiable. We can't know. But at the same time, like I think that like Nazism was certainly like so. For example. No, this is the thing. If they hadn't alienated the Jews, for example, that's a considerable amount of workers.
Yes. So they would have had the nuke. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. That's what I think Stephen Fry made that argument, didn't he? Like he was like, if someone went back in time, killed Hitler, like he wrote a book where someone goes back in time, kills Hitler, and then another Nazi leader arrives, but he's smarter and more capable than Hitler. So what he does is he like uses the Jews to make the nuclear bomb, and then forces the world to surrender. But like that's again like part of the ideology. And as well, like
so you're right about that. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. Like the Jews, not only the nuclear bomb, but like so many technological advancements that like a lot of science were just like thrown out.
Well, that's the thing. Like it's just stupid, and like it wasn't just in science; it was in loads of different areas. Like philosophy, like Husserl lost his place in the university. So like I know that there was a lot of different fields that lost incredible thinkers. Which are beneficial to the state, like, and this is the point. It's like this is why I saw it as a regression, and I still see it as a regression. It not only mediates an individual's desires to be something which is not necessarily going to bring them any form of happiness and can be self-destructive, perpetuating norms and conventions which lead them to a state which is crushing their subjectivity, like going outside and engaging in group behaviors that's no longer seen as acceptable. But also and it's got to have more of a chokehold. Like if we understand the way that these totalitarian regimes develop, hello? Can you hear us? Oh. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Oh, there we go.
I don't know what happened.
Oh no, it's okay. But yeah, like I think. Wait a minute. Is the stream still on? I don't know if it's like my side or.
Is the stream still going?
I think it is. I'm just make sure. Yeah, still going.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can still see it. Yeah. So yeah, honestly, I think it's for the better that we didn't have the debate immediately, because I said some spicy things because like I just got pissed off, and like it might have turned into like a shit show.
Well, I think it's been interesting, anyways.
Yeah, thank you. Because yeah, like I had this sort of like yeah, I said some assholeish thing, but like I just because I didn't even I don't expect people to read comments. It's to me like sort of throwing a stone in the sea. Like sure, fuck it. Like no one's gonna notice.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So,
I think the reality of it is that like all of like the people who say that they don't read comments read the most comments. You know,
yeah,
that's just the way it is. I think like you know like and like people need like this is the whole thing with recognition. We need to be seen and be seen as authentic and engaged in life in a certain way.
yeah.
And this is exactly what like Hegel's really trying to express with objective ethics. We're all trying to express ourselves in a certain way to try and achieve certain ends and understand why those ends are good. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is if we associate our identities with the greatest amount of individuals, and understand what is actually true about ourselves. Allow people to tell me what is right and wrong about my analysis of myself. Like, am I right in thinking that I like something? Like, there are so many times, like, people get wrong their own preferences. Like, they think that they prefer, like, one thing and not another.
Yeah,
And then other people
I've
come along and,
noticed
like,
that.
you know, like, you're absolutely wrong. You don't like that at all. Like, and then, like, if you analyze it, you're like, oh, shit, actually, yeah, that's, I actually fucking hate that one.
Sorry, I've gotten a call.
No, that's fine. That's
Uh,
fine. We can keep going or we can cut it off. It's up to you, man.
like, did you want me to get the call like live on stream?
No. It's just, I mean, just like if you want to take the call, like you can come back or we can cut it off. I mean, like we can end now. It's up to
Oh
you.
shit! I accidentally closed it. Well, fuck it. I'll call it back later. So that wasn't insanely rude, but like I don't usually get calls.
Oh no,
Like it
no,
might
it's
have been
okay. It's
from the
not. It's not
episode.
rude, man. Like you got a call, man. That's cool.
Yeah, I accidentally. I don't know what the decorum is, but like I accidentally closed it, so I guess I have to call it back. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know
that's
who that
fine.
was.
I mean, like I just hope from this what I'm trying to show here is that an individual's culture, even in the why they're engaged in certain goals, can be even contradictory. Like what I was trying to show with the Nazi Germany example is that if Nazi Germany's wanted to even succeed in killing the Jews, the way they went around their ideology was unsuccessful. And like let's say if we remove that even further.
But there are effective genocides in history.
Yeah, there have been, unfortunately, but like, and I'm not. But what I'm saying is that even an ideology, like even a cultural conception, can be flawed against its own standard, and it can be that, and so like not even hit the point of validity. If we're talking about soundness of whether it actually relates to what it thinks it does, like why did this ideology form? What was its goal? And if we look at the foundations of the state, what was the foundations of the state, and why have they developed this way? Sociopolitically, we'll find that the reason it's developed this way is to express either the interests of one individual or multiple individuals. And either way, if we look at what Hegel's arguing, is if we look to why, like, what is, even if I ask the question, what is good for me, I'm gonna end up in the question, what is good for us, and that's essentially the foundation of objective ethics.
And I would say that there's never going to be a clear definition of what is objective for us because I don't think there's ever going to be something that's universally good for all of humanity or universally bad.
Well, I think that like the words good and bad only have meaning because it relates to something which is universally negative or positive. It is in and of itself a universal.
Subjectively, what is good or bad? Like I think that's.
I would say they can't have a language which is subjective.
Sure, but you agreed that we subjectively experience reality before, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, like, actually, I mean, like, I don't believe that we subjectively experience reality. I mean, like, we experience reality from a subjective framework, like a first-person perspective.
Exactly, yeah, that's what.
But like, I don't think you can have like a first-person definition of a word. I think these words fundamentally can only exist in language games. It's whether these language games are
It's how we
self-referential.
perceive those languages.
Yeah, well, it's whether those language games are self-referential or whether they refer to a reality. And this is the thing. I would say that language is a form of equipment, and that being a form of equipment, it has an overall goal, and that goal relates to the life of the individual who engages in the language, and ultimately, it always falls back down to a value experience by a given individual, why they engage in anything. It doesn't matter if it's a Christian language game, it doesn't matter if it's a Muslim language game, it doesn't matter if it's like a American atheist or British like Janus. It doesn't matter what's going on. Everyone is engaged in various language games to try and achieve some sort of value in their life and try and express that value. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that in the most successful degree, epistemologically, is to develop universals which apply to the greatest amount of experience overall, which have the possibility of being verified and falsified.
But that universality seems to end and begin at borders, though, or at culture.
Unfortunately, right now it does. But I think like the reason I put the UN in this in the first place.
I don't think it's ever been different. And I don't think it's.
Well, it has. It used to be smaller.
it used to be bigger too. We talked about Rome. It used to be way bigger.
Well,
then it got smaller, then bigger.
The tensions in Rome. What? There was East and West Rome, and then there was the individual governors in Rome, and then you had like the individuals themselves as generals in Rome, like Crassus, Pompey, Julius Caesar.
I would say that still morally they had the same like consensus for many things in Rome, for that giant empire, even if it was from different parts of it.
Sometimes they did. I mean, it depends on what point in the empire.
I don't know. I think that even legislatively, like I think they had relatively the same law across the land. Of course, it didn't apply to the rich.
But I mean, this is the thing. Like, I mean, even the laws, like the law of, like, for example, take Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar came in and at a point of real contention where like. The system was was essentially falling apart because of its aristocracy, and so he revolutionized half of the empire, through
the consensus, yes.
Yeah, like, but this is the thing. Like, I would say that he had a massive impact upon the ideology, and then that impact upon the ideology led to a civil war. Do you know what I mean? Like, we see the.
Then his universality superseded the old universality,
but I completely agree. We'll move from one universal to the next, but the one
it's force, it's power, it's military might.
I don't think so. I don't think so, because you can have developments in like how we understand power in the first place is an ideological format, which is why we had that thing like what people are willing to do in terms of work, why the communists were willing to work for free, and like ideology has. Before we even look at power and material contentions, ideology relates to an individual's endorsement into this given power structure. Do I accept this power structure or not? That is the first decision made by an individual.
The decision is often forced on you by the objective, measurable proof of a bullet being slugged in your skull.
Well, that's the thing. It can be. You can be annihilated and so on like that. But this is the issue. If you have one individual with a gun, and let's say he's got 5 bullets, and there's a room full of 100 people, like you can, like this is why Thomas Hobbes says.
They'd still be afraid of it. I mean,
yeah, 100%. Like you can use intimidation and force, but like if we were to slowly, lower an individual's fear of death to the point in which none of them fear death, that the gun's useless.
Well. Sure, but I don't think you want a society where people don't fear death.
Well, like the thing is that like no, you probably don't. But like how an individual even understands themselves, like whether dying for even if they do fear death, but they're willing to die for a greater cause or die for their mutual, like all of these things are ideological, and this is why like power itself and how we approach power fundamentally falls down on what we see as power. Like even like if you're really interested in this sort of thing as well, like in Plato's. I think it's Gorgias. It's Plato's Gorgias, where he argues that the tyrant is the least powerful because he's unable to have anyone question his position to the point he can understand whether he's right or wrong. So he could be telling people to do the very thing that he doesn't want to happen and not know it because he can't have someone falsify his position. And that's the point that Hegel's making. If you have power to the point in which you're unassailable, like you're stopping people from questioning you, you're stopping people from helping you develop a self-consciousness which is non-bias, then you end up falling into a position in which your power is self-contradictory. You may will your own self-destruction, like the Nazis did, I would argue, in World War II. But like,
that's actually very interesting. Like many dictatorships do that. I still think that the reason Germany failed was because of resources.
I mean, the Americans had a shit ton of resources, and I think that's undeniable. Like, I think Britain wouldn't, and the Russians. I mean, like a lot of it, I think was just sheer determination on the part of the Russians. It was just an unwillingness to give up, like casualty, like bodies just mounting and just like willing to fight. But I think it was that or genocide.
That's overstated. It's overstated how like like I think it's become sort of like a meme that started by like anti-communists. The idea of Russians, they threw their men at human waves, but the human wave tactics are a bit overstated. I think.
Oh well, the Americans did that. The Americans did that as well. Like,
yeah, D-Day. Yeah, D-Day was basically let's just throw as much shit at the wall, something will stick.
Yeah, like that's it. That really is, unfortunately, like that. It really, really is. I think that like obviously I think the Russians as well. Like if we're being honest, they had better tanks. Basically the first
T-32, was it the T-32 or 39? The big fucker.
Honestly, I can't remember the names of the tanks.
Yeah,
It's basically it's basically what was founded as the first modern tank. Like the first like.
Wait, you mean German tanks or
no,
Russian
no,
tanks?
Russian tanks.
I would say that Germans had way more quality tanks.
Oh no, not at all. Like there was what battle was it? What battle was it where they lined the tanks up and the Russians just rolled over them? The tanks were better tanks. The Germans had a better industrial mechanism.
T-30 something that was a pretty good tank. I think people who know something about tanks are tearing their eyes.
Oh, I know, absolutely, 100%. Like, there's so many tank nerds out there.
Yeah, like this. Like, what the fuck are you saying, God?
The true, the true tank aficionado would say the Sherman, for its ability to be mass produced, just to the point in which you can just make as many of them as you need. Eventually, you'll
because the meme is that sure, like German tanks were more they were better, but like as one was being pressed out of the factory, the Americans were like pressing 10 out of the factory.
Exactly. So it's just that is essentially how America does things in general. Like, I think, to be entirely honest, that is the movement of like contemporary capitalism just summed up in one movement, like mass production. But
sure,
yeah.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, but I think that this is why, like, I think ideology ultimately dictates everything. Like, and then obviously the success of an ideology, I don't think is self-referential. I would argue that the success of an ideology isn't based off some form of social contract, but prior to a social contract even forming, for example, the cognitive success of an agent is based on their actual experience in life. Like, why did I actually even engage in this form of like this way of life in the first place? And then this is what like the success of a state ends up being built up on top of this. But obviously, like, it can become perverse and regress, and it can also become like almost unquestioned, like where it becomes dogmatic, which is really bad. But I still think it's objective. I think that what we need is the right tools, the right methodology, and hopefully we'll get there.
I personally don't, but I hope you're right.
So do I. And hopefully aliens won't make proxy wars. And
I think they will. That's it. Like, people, when these reports came out, like, oh, aliens, I will be completely bored when aliens come. I will see aliens the same way I see like any foreign dignitary or like seeing a species. Like, I don't know why you're excited about that.
Right. I think this is the thing. I think it could be. Like, the thing is that I think Stephen Hawking just said, like, let's hope we never bump into aliens because they'll annihilate us.
He said that, yeah.
But I don't think it's necessarily, like, I think, unfortunately, the proxy war thing, I could see that, like, but I think more than anything, what I truly hope is that like, with like technological advancement, you can have like the development of knowledge and understanding. Like, I'm hoping aliens are anarchists or something. That would be great. Like, but like,
if they manage the science and the sheer strength to master the stars, I'm pretty sure they're like borderline fascist or
Oh no! I completely disagree, because I think, like, if like take something like Star Trek, right? Now, I think, like, if we look at the means of production, let's say the replicator, and then everyone has the possibility of the means of production. The only thing that is centralized would necessarily be the power. Literally power.
Sure.
And then so our engagement in power structures could fundamentally determine our capacity to produce, and that, and I mean, don't get me wrong, that's all so unbelievably
I love Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine might be one of the best television shows of all time.
I completely agree. The Way of the Warrior, man, that's such a good episode. Like, when the when the Klingons
Specific
invade the station and that. That's like when like was it like General Martok and oh, what's he called? Head of the High Council. What's he called? Shit.
Gowron.
Gowron. Yeah, like Gowron and Martok like attack Deep Space Nine to try and invade it, and then it's like they're trying to defend Deep Space Nine, and then it's like Garak and oh, what's that fucking Cardassian called again?
Fucking. You mean Gul Dukat?
Gul Dukat and Garak are like fighting side by. It's such a good episode, man. I fucking love that.
Yeah. Oh shit! Now I remember. Yeah. What the F the fuck? Yeah. Sorry. Oh my god! I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn it! Brain trauma is serious. What's I gonna say? Yeah. I wanted to say I fucking hate the Klingons. They're my least.
Really? I think the Klingons have like I like the Klingons. I mean, I think that society would be trash.
It makes no sense. Like it's just they shame scientists. I think even like the red letter media, like what?
But they made episodes on that, didn't they? Where like Klingons are like trying to like I think is it in Enterprise where like some of the Klingons were like, you didn't think we're all warriors, did you? Like you like what are you fucking talking about? How would that work? It's just like a warrior class, isn't it?
They seem to be That's why I prefer the Jem'Hadar as like a warrior.
Oh, the Jem'Hadar are like but this is the thing. This is the thing. It's totally ideological. Like they didn't need to be addicted. This is what I love about Star Trek.
Yeah,
man. They didn't need to be addicted to Ketracel White. The fact that they are so ideologically indoctrinated is what makes them like the way they are. Like they're just like, what is it?
They're chemically addicted too.
But yeah, they're chemically addicted, but it doesn't matter because it's like what you find is that even the ones that didn't need even when they like get off the Ketracel White, they're still Jem'Hadar. And then this is like one of the episodes. I think one of them even says yeah,
well, they capture Bashir, right? The commander forces him to make a cure for it.
Yeah, that was a good one. But then there was another one where it was like, I think it shows you like there was different factions in it. One person, like there was one where they hunt down the Jem'Hadar, but he says like he basically he says like the rogue Jem'Hadar and stuff, but he like one of the Jem'Hadar says about he kills like one of the Vorta, and then he says what he doesn't realize is that we don't need the white. The white is not the source of our loyalty. And stuff like that, and it's like that is perfect. I fucking love that.
What do you think of in the Pale Moonlight? Probably the best episode in TV history.
Which one's that?
Where Sisko basically orchestrates Sisko and Garak are trying to convince the
Romulans to go to war, and god, that's such a good episode. And he's like, whether he can live with the fact that he like an innocent scientist, like, but it was Garak who organized it all, and he was like, yeah, I guess I can. Like at the end, it's honestly Star Trek is the best. I think that my girlfriend's just shaking her head at us now because she just walked in and I'm just like ranting about Star Trek. But absolutely Star Trek. It's got the best concepts in it. I think but this is the point. Like this is the Federation is just de facto the best, the best civilization because it allows for the greatest expression of subject. You want to defend the Federation because it is the best one. It's going to let you have the best life.
I don't know if you look at things like section 39. Sorry, I keep forgetting.
Yeah, section 39 are like the seedy underbelly of the CIA of the Federation.
How many evil admirals are there? How many evil and incompetent admirals are there?
Then you have people who go like ideologically deluded as well. Like there was that captain who goes and like the Next Generation who kills.
I didn't watch the Next Generation.
Oh, the Next Generation is so fucking good.
I know, but
Next Generation, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine.
Interconnected plot. Sorry.
Well, the thing is the plots are like the beautiful thing is like the Next Generation, the best of both worlds. That episode in the Next Generation is the start of Deep Space Nine, and
I know that, yeah.
And then in Deep Space Nine, like one of those episodes is like the start of Voyager, And I love the fact it's only those three are really connected in terms of like being in the same universe. I would say like I like Enterprise. I think Enterprise is an alright series. I think it's pretty cool. But I think that the best are like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, like by far.
Yeah.
Um,
I personally like the original series because it's like fun pulp adventure. And I don't think many people appreciate it for that. They go like, "Oh, it's silly." Well, it's okay. I mean, that adds to the fun.
it is.
It's
It
a
is
fun.
good. It is.
It's basically like watching an old pirate show. These are sea captains just in space.
Yeah, it is. It
It's
really is. It is exactly like that. It's like and it's always like or like a western or something almost.
yeah.
It is something like where the person's just like it's like Captain Kirk like versus the world.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's the moral like barometer. He's the one who rises to the. Though I gotta say, people misunderstand the one with the dinosaur. What's his name? The fucking the,
what are them called again? Shit, the one where it's
yeah, the rubber costume.
yeah. What are they called again?
Oh
Gorn,
my
a
God,
Gorn.
Or yeah, that episode is fucking fantastic. Like I know that the fight is silly. The episode is fucking awesome. Not just like it legitimately raises questions about colonialism, about what is good or bad. It's a very cool episode. And although the fight choreography is shit, I think the tension in the fight is good. If they didn't show the actual confrontation, like Kirk is legitimately hurt, tired, and without sleep, and he's at his wit's end basically. So I actually the original series has some pretty good episodes.
Oh, 100%. I mean, even like I know Martin Luther King, was it Aurora? Like she was thinking about quitting, but like Martin Luther King actually met her in person, was saying like you're actually a really great role model for young Black Americans everywhere. And
I
like
never
this
knew
is
that.
yeah, like and then and it was the first TV show to portray a white man kissing a black woman on the American.
Apparently that's not wrong. I think like Cheers or some other way had like I think even the British might have had a.
I said American.
Yeah,
I don't know if a British might have done it, but Americans. I thought it was for the Americans, but I'm not sure if it was. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Like, don't get me wrong. I'll have to go double check.
Yeah, apparently there's been like a bunch. Yeah, I think I know. Yeah, there's been apparently like prior examples of that happening, but I can't be sure. But yeah, like it was a momentous shit. I think I should watch the Next Generation. I've seen some episodes of the Next Generation.
Oh, I love the Next Generation so much, man. Like The Measure of a Man in the Next
Yeah, I've
Generation
seen the Measure of
is
a Man. Yeah, that
such a
seems
good
awesome,
episode. Like there's some really great episodes. Like there's some of them that are like it's just like calling into question entire like, so for example, people's cultures are expecting them to die at the age of 60 and stuff like that. You've got like cultures expect like different. Oh, honestly, it's great. It's honest. I love it so much. This is
I could not get into. Was it Voyager, the one where they go into the
Delta Quadrant. Yeah, that's Voyager. Yeah.
such a wasted opportunity.
I think it was a good show. I think that the first few
God.
episodes, it depends on like where you go for it. Like there's a few episodes that are a bit, but then there's some episodes that are really good in Voyager. I don't think it's as good as Deep Space Nine and the Next Generation though.
Yeah,
but
it's
that's
such
just
a downgrade.
But like you can't expect them to like. There was still some episodes that were really great in it. Like still like there's some really good like species they meet and some concepts that they like indulge in more. But then
Sure.
like I think that like there was like I'm trying to think of like some of their encounters with the Borg were really good. I'm trying to I think the thing is like I always see that the Next Generation is, to be honest, the gold standard, and that's because I think that like it's almost Shakespearean with how much he like actually like Patrick Stewart and the whole show relates to like deeper moral like connotations. Like it's constantly relating back to like some sort of like ethical conundrum or like contention. And but like and I think that happens a lot in Deep Space Nine and happens less in Voyager, but it still happens. So like it's good, but it's not as good.
I think Voyager's problem is that it did not use its own premise to tell more more stories. For example, here's a thing that I think would have been interesting, because like Deep Space Nine presses on this issue. I think that although it's based from the Holocaust, but a lot of the Bajorans is based from the Balkan Wars because they were happening at the time. I think so. There's a lot of similarities.
The Bajorans, like that is such a good fucking plot line though. Like Bajor was such a good plot line to build on. Like just this colonialism, like really severe like colonialism and like concentration camps and everything. It was honestly brilliant.
Yeah, the episode Duel, like the episode with like the Bajoran that had convinced himself, or was it a guy that had convinced himself he was a dictator?
Oh yeah, where he's like he feels like guilt from it, and so he gets surgery to look like the evil murderer, and he was just a guy that worked in the concentration camp. Oh, that was so good.
Fucking good.
Oh, it's so good. But yeah, but this is the thing. Like, I think Star Trek's really great. Like, I do, but I think that like that's the ideal society, man. I will argue that Star Trek is where we ought to be heading.
But even the evil societies managed to conquer like the fucking oh my god, I can't. We just talked about them, and
the Cardassians,
the Cardassians, and even the other ones, the evil Vulcans,
Romulans.
The Romulans were way more powerful, and they had basically a dictatorial, imperialistic, horrible culture.
Yeah, but if you look at like Deep Space Nine shows this to be a really good example because of the way the Romulans try to engage in warfare, they end up destroying in one fell swoop the what are they called? It's the Romulan and the Cardassian CIAs. What are they called? It's the Obsidian Order and what are the Romulans?
The Obsidian Order and Section 39.
No, Section 39 is the Federations.
Oh, I thought you meant the Federation.
The Romulans ones.
Oh my god, what's the fucking Romulans? Holy shit! How do I?
Let's see. If I just Google Romulan CIA.
Yeah, I hate myself for not remembering this.
The Tal Shiar, that's it.
The Tal Shiar, yeah.
Like the Tal Shiar get themselves destroyed. You know what I mean? Like the Cardassians have to make like they end up provoking a fight with the like the Klingons, and the Klingons almost destroy themselves. The only people that are actually bringing stability to the quadrant are the Federation, and that's that.
Federation gets almost brought to the brink of extinction if it didn't enter that quote unquote alliance with the I forget them again.
Romulans,
God damn it, the Romulans.
Yeah, but the thing is that like that's true, but that only but like as well like that was only able to happen in any way because of like there was that one episode where they basically did trick the Romulans into it, but also the Federation risk their own lives and stuff. Like countless times to save both like to save the Klingon Empire, which they depended upon, who they were enemies with in the first place, to save the Cardassians, and the Cardassians because of the way that
I don't think it was under the orders of the Federation. I think that was just Sisko himself.
Wasn't it? Like, well, no, because I think it was like they were ordered, like he was like, they're like, oh, so who are they sending? And he was me. And then it's like, then the theme tune starts.
Are you referring how they like they basically went in Klingon face and penetrated and assassinated fake Garon?
No, fake Garon. No, it wasn't fake Garon. It was fake Martok. That's the thing.
Martok, yeah.
But they thought it was Garon, and then anyway. But
I think that was themselves. I don't think they were under Federation orders to do.
No. Because he goes like, we have to expose. He's like, they're under orders to expose the Changeling, the Klingon Changeling, and then the Cardassians, the Cardassians end up betraying the what's it called, the Jem'Hadar and all that, which is the only reason like
oh my god, how the fuck am I how the fuck am I forgetting the main antagonist of Deep Space Nine's name?
What's the antagonist?
Yeah, but what's their name? The Empire, the founders.
Oh, the Dominion.
The Dominion, yeah.
Yeah, they betrayed the Dominion, and like because the Dominion's policies like were so unbelievably like the ideology again exiled the Cardassians. The Cardassians then feeling like second-class citizens end up betraying the Dominion. Honestly, like the only place that is permanently stable in this whole thing is the Federation.
And cue the Picard show where all of that is thrown in the dirt.
I don't know what's going on with Picard and that. I haven't watched it yet. Like I'm kind of scared too because I feel like everything that's been done with Star Trek since like Star Trek Discovery. I watched some of that. I was like, what is this? I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? This is so bad. Like why would like
explosions?
This is what I hate about it. Is like the goal. Like it just feels you can almost feel wokeism throughout like so many episodes. And you're just like, but wait a minute, this is fucking Star Trek. This is like
it's
the most ethically
progressive.
This is the thing. It's the most progressive show, like probably on TV. And then it's supposed to be existing in a world where like everything has been sort of resolved. And then they talk about these like past like ethical issues in a way of like, wow, that was really bad. And this is so shit, and that's what you're supposed to see them as, like this. That they're supposed to be like a beacon of hope, and what they turn them into is like, oh, they're just as bad as us, really, aren't they? And it's just
oh my god, like basically what I like in Picard, the thing about immigration, like so somehow the fucking Vulcans, one of the largest empires in known space, they need to migrate to the Federation because one planet was destroyed.
Well, this is the thing. I just like to pretend that like I don't care about this part of the universe, if I'm honest, because I think it's kind of good that like the new Star Trek films destroyed Vulcan and all that and created a separate timeline, because I like to pretend that there is a real timeline that involves none of this bullshit where Vulcan was destroyed by some black hole or something. Like I don't know where that came from. Like I don't know what idiot thought, oh well, just a black hole or something just popped out of nowhere. Or what the fuck? And then
wouldn't even like
as if Vulcan hadn't even seen it coming. Like
somehow, yeah.
It just for some reason like the whole planet got destroyed, and I don't know. Anyway,
why would they care? I mean, it's just one planet. They have like multiple other planets we can evacuate to. What's that an issue?
Well, this is it. This is it. Like 100%. Like they're supposed to be like multi like interstellar like species, like having like colonies like all over the place. And even then, like Earth is supposed to be at the time to be like massive, like have mass amounts of Vulcans on it anyway, because it's the headquarters of Starfleet, and everyone in fucking Starfleet, like you see Vulcans all over the place. And like other episodes, there's like Vulcans walking the streets. So like, why would anyone care about? Who would even mind if Vulcans got there? No one cares. Vulcans like are unbelievably accepted within the Federation, so they'd be like, oh yeah, welcome. Like, sorry. Anyway,
although the Empire did have a bit of animosity and sort of even examples of racism with Romulans.
Well, like the thing is with like there was animosity, like they do work through these concepts in Star Trek. They do have like instances where things aren't morally perfect and they have to still work through them. But like it's never been as like, I don't know. Maybe I just have nostalgia for the old series and the way they would portray these problems. But I just think it was more nuanced. Like especially Star Trek Discovery, that just lost all nuance. Like it lost. I don't know why. But anyway, sorry. This is just.
Before we end the conversation, I gotta say one thing controversial. I like their depiction of the Klingons. I want them to look more alien. I don't want them to look like people with wigs.
See, I mean, at first I thought it was good, but then I thought that depiction, like if we talk about that, the way that they made the Klingons be, like they made the Klingons like cannibalistic, which was weird. Like they're eating people and stuff.
I don't know.
Then like that also like, then like they're not like they have no like structure in that society. They're also a bit mindless and stupid. Like the Klingons like.
I mean, they're always stupid though.
They're a bit stupid, but they're not like But they're not like politically like that. They have spies. They have like they're not just a bunch of like angry idiots running around in spaceships. Like
I would say that's Klingon culture in the old shows in a nutshell.
Oh, maybe, but not in Star Trek, like The Next Generation, and then in Deep Space Nine.
I haven't seen much of Generation, so I can't speak for Generation. But in
Deep
Deep
Space.
Space Nine, they were that way.
No, because in Deep Space Nine, they had a united political front, right? The High Council, the houses were under one banner. They had laws
And they
that
had children in it.
and like they had politics and they had loads of stuff going on under the scenes. And they were just like, most people just saw it as like, oh, you know, they're warriors. But like also it had stuff like, who gets to own a house. And like you know, Quark's got to come in and like basically tell like you
I
know
was about to bring that up.
you know, like talk about like the politics of it all, and that there's so much going on. But like what they made them in Discovery was a bunch of mindless fucking baboons, like just murdering each other and shit. And then, I don't know. And then I don't know. I didn't like them.
Just like their design. I think their design is like I love both the movie version and the Discovery version above the original one. I even prefer like. I don't know, like, just I've always hated the little ridges. It looks like
I like the Klingons, man. I love the Klingons. I like the warrior culture. They're basically like the whole honor culture tied to it. It's like very Japanese and stuff. Oh man, it's class. The martial arts. All of that was gone. Sorry.
Well, the thing is that I come from a culture that's like often regarded as a warrior culture, so like I kind of cringe whenever somebody depicts like a one-dimensional warrior culture.
Oh, but I think that it is usually shit. Like when it is like let's be honest, like anything that is a warrior culture is going to like either destroy itself or like.
But the thing is that warrior cultures do not exist. No cultures like
monodynamic.
Even the Vikings.
No, yeah, that can't be.
Yeah, I mean even the closest it comes to it would be the Spartans, and they were fucking.
Well, actually, what we've found is that the Spartans. This is something I've only just learned. The Spartans were not a warrior culture, really. Actually, what we've found is that the people of Argos were said to have better warriors. Spartans were famous for their women and not their warriors. What Spartans were good at was propaganda. Sparta, and this is why Plato talks about the noble lies, and he talks about how the Spartans are the best philosophers. But one of the things is that in for example, the Agoge. It's Agoge, isn't it? Like the training like that they went through as children. That never actually existed. They never did all of that. Then they like brought it around for like basically people to holiday in like see this brutal culture as a way of like staying relevant in times of Rome after they had already been conquered. But like Sparta really was a slave culture. Like it enslaved mass amounts of its population, ideologically empowered itself by proclaiming to be like fierce and more capable. The only thing that it did have was a very well organized military, and they would sometimes send because they would like play flutes and stuff like that, and it was like sound based for like formations and stuff. But like
that was very important music. Yeah.
But other than that, like in terms of like military capabilities, they were not better than like any of the other societies in ancient Greece. That's like Spartans weren't like super warriors that were like. It's sad because I really wanted them to be, because I really liked that. Like I thought it was cool, like the aesthetic. But like it
was bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
the comic, like that to me, like it's one of the two only good Zack Snyder movies. That and Days Later was
300.
300 and his other zombie movie, his original zombie movie. They're like his two good movies.
What was Zack Snyder's original zombie movie? And also, thank you for the tip there, President Sunday. I really appreciate it.
Was it? It was a remake of Dawn of the Dead. His remake of Dawn of the Dead.
I don't know if I didn't like Dawn of the Dead, man. I didn't like the remake of Dawn of the Dead, but that was I think that's preference. Like in terms of zombie movies, I don't know what zombie movie I'd actually endorse.
Watch Return of the Living Dead. That's the
Night of the Living Dead was okay. Was it? No, what's actually, you know, what was that? What's that? Day of the Dead. Was it Day of the Dead where the zombie like
is pretty good.
Where like he becomes like self-conscious and stuff. I really liked that one. That was really good.
Yeah. That's the thing. I am bored by the traditional zombie. Like to me, that's like I find horror in malice. If there's like a specific intelligent malice, and so I find like zombies that are more self-conscious to be more scary than like dumb drooling zombies. If there's like a form of intelligence behind it, it gets creepier for me.
Well, that's the thing. I think that I think what you've like in terms of zombies, I think that they're not really approaching it in a way that's supposed to show like the struggle for meaning. Like zombies being like, we already live around zombies all the time. The important thing is to not be a zombie anymore. Like, and I think that that's like, I think Day of the Dead did that really well because it's like everyone's like kind of ideologically indoctrinated. They think that the zombies aren't a threat anymore, and then while this is all going on, like the zombies are like becoming like self-conscious and shit and learning how to like use guns and stuff. Like and like it's great. Like I love that. I love that kind of thing. And you know, like honestly, in terms of like the overall to like bring it to a close and unite everything, I think zombies are like the biggest example of what I would say was like why I think what human life is all about, the struggle for meaning, right? Like we're trying to engage in some sort of like authentic you know, expression of subjectivity, and being a zombie is to engage to either just be a slave to your own drives or a slave to some sort of like maybe some sort of like corporate mechanism that's you know, like in Resident Evil, or like some sort of ideological basis. And like fundamentally what it was being a zombie is the death of meaning because of a one-sided dialectic where someone tells you how to think, feel, and so on without you actually having to engage in reason and work out what is actually the best expression of subjectivity. And I think that like the struggle for freedom and to not become a zombie isn't just like don't get bitten. It's the fact that like what makes a zombie is contagious. And it's transferred through the mouth, you know. It's an ideological expression, like it's through words, it's through propaganda. You can become a zombie because all you got to do is stop thinking, and then all of a sudden you're there, and it's the fact that as well, it's the rejection of death. Like in Heidegger, death is the point that makes us authentic. Death gives us the possibility of taking our life as finite and taking responsibility for it. If we become undead, incapable of death, then we become dogmatic, we become docile, we do what we are told, and we don't think for ourselves, and we become zombies. And I think that's pretty much where I would say like objective ethics comes in. Objective ethics is thinking for yourself.
If I knew that I was immortal, I would be the least docile person in history. I would just go around killing government officials left and right.
Well, that's not necessarily the good thing to do. And what happens when
it would be absolutely like my government officials are completely fucking corrupt. They deserve to not die, but at least be removed from power.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I know you're being hyperbolic, and like obviously just because this is a stream,
Sure.
I do not condone violence against any government official or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to say that because Vosh actually had Hakim on his stream,
in Minecraft, none of this is real. I'm saying in a Kosovo that's a Minecraft. In a Minecraft, I would violently depose corrupt politicians.
Well, I think
if I was like an undead vampire.
Well, this is the thing. Like corrupt politicians are it's just something. They're a plague unto themselves as well as the rest of society. I know that our society at the minute, where like only just like people are complaining now because we found out like a big thing came out about how a police force basically had someone. It was like there was like this tie between my police force and the media and like the Tory party, and there was this detective that got like axed to death. It's like the Derek Morgan case. It's unbelievably corrupt and horrible, and it's only just really kind of coming out now, and people are only just really seeing how well it's been going on since the 80s, but only just seeing like how really far spread this was going. But he was basically it was like a prelude to the hacking scandal that like eventually surfaced, and he was the guy that like stumbled on the case and got like murdered and stuff. But like yeah, it's awful. Like corruption everywhere. Unfortunately, it really is everywhere.
Yeah, but if we didn't have the fear of death, we could easily dispense. I don't think we would be docile if we didn't have the fear of death. Is what I'm saying.
Well, I think this is the thing. I'd say that a politician is someone who has lost the fear for death, who has lost the meaning of life in the first place. They've become politicians in order to gain power unto themselves because they haven't even thought for a second what is good and what is bad. In a way which is rational and grounded. They've become authoritarian and self-defeating, which is why I think corruption and politics as it is today exists in the way it exists today. It's very individualistic and self-gratifying. Just as a zombie is, you know?
I think that we're essentially all zombies and we're deluding ourselves that we're somehow more than our base nature.
I don't think so. I think that like a zombie like it's kind of like in the Day of the Dead. It's the fact that a zombie can wake up, man. Like just because even if you are a zombie, like the true like conversion of the zombie in the Day of the Dead is to recognize that, like, wait a minute, I'm being materialistically confined by fireworks. You know, like there's a spectacle that's deluding me into thinking that I can't eat when actually all my food is readily available.
Yeah, sure, but okay. Well, I'm just saying. I don't know that. I guess I have a very reductive view of humanity. That at the end of the day, I just see us as the zombies, as animals who try to fill our gullets, and everything else we justify retroactively.
You see, I don't think that necessarily works. I would even say that the epistemology for that wouldn't be able to function, if we take
I mean,
that
that's how
position.
we work.
You see,
Just want our basic
check out
needs fulfilled.
check out me determinism debunked video, because I think that goes against that a lot. But also, there's a
Sure.
philosopher called Robert
Then,
Brandom who basically argues that, like, there is a movement in which, you know, animals are, you know, using tools and so on like that, and there are different movements of how like we engage in terms of epistemology and language to try and develop more and more like the capacity for fulfilling our needs and fulfilling our desires. But in doing that, I would say that we then become constructive. We end up destroying our base nature and replacing it with culture. And this is where like things get complex, where you can have, like, for example, people who can only satisfy themselves by causing themselves by not satisfying themselves, like for example, in forms of Christianity and or in Islam and so on like that, where it becomes like forms of almost you've got like flagellation, which is awful, but then you've got what's it called, things like fasting and things like that, where it's like the actual
Ramadan.
restriction of desires and stuff like that. And this is the thing about human psychology, and the psyche. It just becomes much more complex. Like the expression of desires within an animal is never gonna fast. Like, they don't. Only a human is capable of that.
I would say that there are examples where animals are hungry, go hungry themselves to feed their young.
Yeah,
Because they have
yeah.
different imperatives.
But then I would say that's a different, that's a base imperative, rather than like something like fasting is the choice to not eat food regardless of.
But it gives us pleasure. When I used to fast, because I was a staunch Muslim, it would. I mean, I still like. I mean, like right now, I have some artificial form of fasting. Fasting brings you a crazy amount of pleasure. I've noticed.
But I'm not saying that it doesn't, and I'm not even saying that. Like, what I'm saying is that I don't think it's a necessarily natural behavior. I don't think our behaviors are natural anymore. I think that
Sorry, I keep interrupting all the time. Go
Oh
on.
no, it's okay. I was just going to say that I think that they've become like essentially like developed and changed and modified throughout human history. But continue, sorry.
Sure, but I think an animal, in a few, I don't know how fast it takes for an animal, could develop a trait where it brings incredible pleasure by fasting, and it would do that.
Oh, I agree.
Animals do a
Like
lot of behavior.
you can have like certain behaviors that would develop intrinsically. But I think that like if an animal was to become self-conscious and it was to have that like mechanism, it could then deny that mechanism. And this is why I think this is the whole point of like self-negation is so important. Like to deny myself my experience of like what like value that I want. Like say I want like to eat and I decide to fast, or if I want to fast and I decide to eat because what I know is in my own interest, which would be, let's say, the preservation of my life or like nutrition or whatever it is, then that becomes ideological. And like obviously animals can't have that, I would say. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go.
Oh shit. Oh, nice. My fucking just up and died and started not recognizing my speakers for some reason.
It's cool, man. It's cool. We should probably end it now. And anyways, like we've been going for like 2 hours 40, and I'm pretty sure like at least 2/3 of that was Star Trek. So
Honestly, it should have been all of it. Should have been Star Trek. I don't get to talk. Like I'm pretty sure there are nerds in my country, but I don't get to talk to them at all. I'm a very isolated place, so I use any opportunity.
well, like honestly, like I think like a nerd culture is a culture like that crosses borders. If I needed any evidence to say it ends and it begins at I would fight for Star Trek community before I'd fight for Britain. Like
Absolutely, dude. If somebody told me like Cisco is a bad captain, I might be like able, like the same way Islamists would be like if they offend Muhammad. Like I would be just moved to violence immediately.
like but yeah, like did you have anything that you'd like to say as like a closing statement, or are you cool? Like, do you want closing statements? Up to you. To be entirely honest.
I don't. Oh my god. I wanted to say something, not as a closing statement, but I wanted to say something way before, and now like I have OCD, so if I don't say it, like I'll I hate it. But no. Anyway, like it was really great talking to you. I didn't expect this. I expected it to be like, because you can see I'm not a learned man at all. I don't know anything about philosophy. So I was like, because I've seen in some debates you were not arrogant, but you could sound condescending, and perhaps it could be because you were talking to Vosh, and he's very arrogant himself.
I was gonna say
Like,
like, that was a great debate, like in terms of like how that come across. But I think it's like yeah.
you were very like understanding, like you were not condescending, like you didn't behave like an asshole, and I thought you were an asshole, honest to God.
Oh well, I'm glad that I at least managed to dispel that, at least to some degree.
Yeah, I honestly, I thought you were like, I didn't like you at all before this conversation. I got to be honest with you. You turned me around like 90 degrees.
Oh, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. Like Star Trek, you know, like men like building bridges, you know, like
yeah. But even before that, like I just it was great fun talking to you, and you weren't condescending. So I apologize if I sounded stupid. I'm pretty sure you're like learned, like audience is now seething, like, oh my god, he's so fucking stupid. But whatever.
I don't think you sounded stupid at all, man. Like I don't, not at all.
Well,
Obviously we disagree, but that's just the nature of debate. Like we wouldn't be debating with us if we agreed. But that's it. Like I think it was a really good conversation. I think it was fruitful, and I really appreciate your time. And I really enjoyed I certainly enjoyed the Star Trek conversation. I never get to talk about Star Trek.
I enjoyed that a lot.
And
Thank you
yeah, it was a really good conversation as well. Like even before that, and then after, yeah. Thanks for coming on, and you know, if you ever want to chat again, just let us know.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, thank you. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day, mate. Take it easy. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks.
Right. So I hope you all enjoyed that conversation. Let us know what you think. I don't know how. I probably lost like 20, 30 viewers or something in the Star Trek portion. It's like just talking about different Star Trek episodes and how good they are. but yeah. If anyone has a question, you can drop it in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer it. And thank you very much, President Sunday, for the donation. Ooh. Good stuff. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. Kids are idiots. PP clipped. You can. I don't even care. Kids already. Well, this is the thing, Komish Gibbeth. There is truth with a lowercase t, and then there is truth with an uppercase. Like truth and let's say like justification, as in like the justifications we use would be relative to Hegel. So that would be like cultural. But the truth, like the actual understanding of the world, like as in how the world is, that would be. I do sleep with the phenomenology of spirit, but that would be objective and like. So, for example, like an individual's height, for example, would be dependent upon the method we use to measure it and the scale and the type of measurements we use. If I use like metric or imperial, or if I use if I use a standardized ruler versus like I don't know, like lying down on the floor, making a mark, and then walking with my feet or something like that. Um, and then even then the measurements themselves are based upon distances which we've determined and try to standardize as much as possible, and those standardizations are built upon trying to make those more precise in certain mechanisms, and ultimately it falls down to the point in which we agree that the methodology is relative to the individual who is measuring. So like my height in terms of the result, if I was being measured by someone with a like if I'm using like a laser measuring system versus a ruler, one is going to be more accurate than not, but the differences aren't dependent upon my actual height, which would be the same ontologically. I am a certain height. The differences would be dependent upon the ways in which I'm measuring them, and those are the justifications for the reasons that we believe in certain notions of truth. That's why like the truth in any given position is relative to the ideology and the methodology that we are using to engage within it. And this is why Hegel believes that logic itself and our rational capacities are actually constantly progressing. And he talks about this more so in the Science of Logic. And I'm very, very glad you enjoyed it, Kron. I hope to see you on again. Best movie of all time without The Matrix. Best movie of all time. Gee, I don't know what the hell would be the best movie of all time. That's hard. I don't think I could give one. Because they've got different like positives and negatives, It depends on what I'm after at that point. Like, what is like? You can't just say like one is better than the other necessarily, because they each have their own positives and negatives. Any thoughts of making some bite-sized cut stuff from your debates? Especially the patienthood part. I could do. I mean, if you've got something that you'd like us to. I mean, like I think like if you're on Twitch and stuff, you can actually clip them if you wanted it clipped. But and I think they're talking about bringing that into YouTube, like being able to clip like certain sections and stuff and have it appear underneath the video, which would be pretty cool. But yeah, I was thinking about making like stuff and even uploading it to TikTok. Do you think it would be worth like taking sections of me debates and uploading them to TikTok, like as like minute clips? Because I could totally do that. But I should probably, like, I'll probably be cutting me debates down as well anyway, just to make it more accessible for YouTube, like so people like can actually just watch a video. I think I just spelled appreciate wrong. Okay. Okay. Right. Don't know whether I should see if I can get another debate, because I might be able to. Love your content, dude. Thanks very much, Liquid Sunshine. I really appreciate it. See you on TikTok one day then. I've been meaning to make a TikTok. I think I don't know whether I should see if I can find another debate. Because I know that I've got like a few debates lined up and I could do them, or whether I should really just bounce because I've got loads of work to do. So it's kind of like I probably should bounce because I've got loads of work to do. Star Trek is the best sci-fi by far. Star Trek is unbelievably good. I think Star Wars is sci-fi, but there is like, it's kind of like, you're right, like it's sci-fi fantasy. Objective aesthetics is a difficult thing to talk about because objective aesthetics is like, so for example, I would say that objective aesthetics are objective in forms of judgment, as in we create beauty standards and things like that, and ways in which we judge beauty and so on. But what we are doing there is we are judging something which is, and we are creating standards which don't correspond to reality. There is no, it's not actually better or more beautiful. There is nothing that it refers to. It's an aesthetic standard on it itself. And I would say that would be the difference primarily between what I would say was objective ethics, well, between ethics or morality and aesthetics. They're both like very similar forms of judgment, except for one purports to reality and one purports to what an individual's belief states or a cultural belief state. Then what's the Matrix? Yeah, like I honestly, I don't think I can justify it. I've got epistemology to do. I think I need. I could do with the. I know that there's a few debates that I need to do. Just need to catch up on them. I've got a debate scheduled on Monday. Maybe. I know I'm debating Jeff Gappy, like perspective philosophy. On whether we should have like whether, well, like actually like to give some clarity for where this debate's coming from, right? So you know, like GF Garpy, you know, he's all into biology, and essentially, I'll see if I'll find it on my profile. Where is it? I've retweeted him because he believes that if you essentially produce technology, but you don't reproduce, then you're being cooked. He sees it as what he described as an advanced form of cuckoldery. Now, that I thought was a bit weird. Like, what does it mean to say that, like, if an individual produces technology but they don't have children, that they're being cooked? Like, I don't know what that even means necessarily. I don't know if anyone can explain that to me. But he sees, like, essentially he understands identity to be referential to genes. So I am who I am because of my genes, right? And there's no reason to believe that. There's no reason to believe that an individual's self-consciousness is based from genes, especially since an individual's self-consciousness is what allowed them to understand and relate to genes in the first place. So how could I identify with my genes? How could my genes have caused my identity if, like, essentially what I'm trying to say is that what genes are and, like, what all of this actually is, this expression of information is non-causally related to an individual's capacity to think, right? So if you want to check out why, check out me Determinism Debunked video, which basically goes into why I'm metaphysically impossible and why I'm an existentialist. But there's no reason to believe that an individual's genes determine how they're going to think. And I think that's where he's basically what he's related it to. But the funny thing is that it makes ethics pretty much unimportant anyway. Like, so my genes want to reproduce. Well, why should I give a shit about what my genes want to do? And let's say he says, you do give a shit and you can't help it. And it's like, right, so what? I give a shit. I mean, I don't necessarily. But, like, let's say, like, I don't give a shit and I don't reproduce and instead I produce technology. Why should that matter? Like, why does he see that as the standardization of value and goodness, and the self. And why does he see it as an expression of ego as well? Which I think is kind of perverse, right? Because look at it like this. That way, the only way this works, that it's an expression of cuckoldery, as he says, is if my children are an expression of my identity. But then, if my children are an expression of my identity, then isn't my identity an expression of my parents' identity? And then their identity is an expression of their parents' identity and their parents' identity, and so on, so on, so on, so on, so on. And so none of us actually hold ownership to these genes, right? So why the fuck do I give a shit? Like 250,000 years ago or something, when my genes evolved, like say the Y chromosome evolved, that has produced me. Like why do I care that is being reproduced or not necessarily, right? And why should I associate who I am and what I am with that Y chromosome? Like it's like, it's part of us maybe, but like to say that it's totally determinate of how I'm going to think and feel and so on like that, I think it's just unfounded, and certainly relies upon a level of physicalism that I'm not willing to endorse. But then even in terms of like, if we accept the physicalism, even if we accept that it did determine everything, why does it then become like self-association? Like, well, my genes to be like a unique organism must be like have formed me as a unique organism, right? Let's just take that, right? That means, let's say it was my identity, my having children could never reproduce me. Like, I can never exist again because I'm never going to have a perfect form of reproduction. So, in my child, I am never going to exist. So, why should I exist more in my child than in my technology when one contains the work of my, like, hands, my actual labor, which is ideologically directly determined in this case by my genes, and in the other case it's it has absolutely nothing to do with me. It's not just my genes, it's somebody else's genes, and it's an imperfect form of reproduction. I don't know, man. Like cloning would be the best thing in this case, surely. Would he not want cloning? But I don't know, maybe but that's the thing, like, his logic is probably that you're contributing to the world, but you're getting nothing from it. But, like, why should I think that me genes are me? And then why should I, and even if me genes are me, then I can't reproduce me genes, like, without being either, like, cloning or just becoming immortal and living forever. So, like, is having children not, like, are my genes not being cooked by my partner's genes, you know? And then so on, like 10 generations from now, when that person's nothing like or very little like in comparison to me, have I been cooked by like the very thing that he's telling me that I should do? I don't know what the fuck does the word cook even mean in this scenario. Why use that word? I think he is a race realist, isn't he? Is he actually a race realist? Because that's just dumb. That's just new levels of dumb. But yeah, I've got a debate with JF. I've got a debate with Demon Mama coming up, apparently, maybe. And I've also got a debate with a moral particularist. So yeah, that should be really that should be something. These debates. I don't know how I've ended up in these. So yeah, this will be something. Okay, guys. Right. I think it's time. It's been 3 hours now, so I hope you've all enjoyed this stream. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Send the stream. Send my videos to people. Tell people that I'm great. You know, genetically cook me by reproducing. I don't know. Have a nice time anyway, everyone. And as always, try to gain some perspective.